This meeting of Town of Diamond Valley. Town of Diamond Valley acknowledges that we are on the traditional territories of the people of Treaty 7, right, root of the region southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, and Kainai First Nations, Stoney Nakoda Bearspaw, which include the Chiniki, Wesley, and Bearspaw First Nation, which is just down in Valley, and the Dene of Tsuut'ina First Nations and the Métis Region 3, and all those people that call Treaty 7 lands home. So if we could get our additions to the agenda, please. I'll go Sean first and then I'll come to council.
So, Mayor Grant, I have 2 items for a closed session at the end of this meeting.
Okay.
Under FOIP section
24 and 17.
24 and 17.
And I believe yours is going to piggyback on theirs.
On that as well, so we'll take one more addition on that for personnel
Per person.
at 24.
24?
That is nothing, by the way.
Please and thank you.
That is one of the ones I have.
Yeah, I just said we could put one in more.
Perfect.
Please and thank you.
All right. Was there anything from council other than deputy mayors?
Yeah.
We've got you covered. And oh, yes, I have an update as well, which I talked to you about, and that's what 24 is. Okay, thank you. Just didn't know if that was already included. Okay, good. So we're good.
Approve those.
Yes, please.
Okay. give that
Deputy
a-
Mayor gives us.
Yeah.
As amended.
Yep.
All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Alrighty. Public hearings. Sorry, adoption of the minutes first for February 15th. I'll take that. Heather gives me that. Any errors, omissions, comments, concerns? Hazel gives the thumbs up, therefore I would also say it's perfect. All in favor? And that's carried. Cindy, you get the golden ticket tonight if you want to interrupt us at any time. You're in a little tiny window over there, so we're probably not going to catch you off guard. So if you want to interrupt us, you go ahead, okay? There you go. So Councillor Holiday's here on Zoom. She's down in the corner of the screen. All righty. Minutes are adopted. We are good. Public hearings. We are going to postpone 4.1, which is the public hearing for bylaw 2023-12, the advertising bylaw. And John, I understand that we're postponing because we need to advertise the advertising properly.
Yes, Mayor Grant, if I might, it was just a minor miss in the ad that we did not include the ability for the public to petition. And so it's a common oops. We caught it in time. We just postpone it. We'll re-advertise and we'll hold the public hearing as soon as we're able to.
Perfect. And just for the public's knowledge, when the MGA speaks about specifics, we have to follow them specifically, and that was one of those requirements. So that's why we postponed it. No giant determining factor there. Just a simple 2-week window, and it's back on the topic. So, question period. Question period is a 15-minute section of time that the council allows for the public to ask questions of council or administration for clarity on just about anything you wish in town. You can email, phone, call a friend, bug a counselor. You can do anything to get the message here. You can write it out on a form. There's all our qualifications for question period. Usually it goes like this. Administration, have you received any emails or any questions from the public?
No, Mayor Grant, I have not.
All right, council, anything for you guys? You guys forwarding? Then we are good. None from the gallery tonight?
Yeah.
Did you submit your question?
No,
It's followed.
Okay, so
sorry,
yeah, so you always have to submit the question, following the rules on the wall here.
my phone just.
And then that can go to administration. They can vet it. Then if there's some background information upstairs that they can pull for us, they'll bring that in. Or be like, it's about public works and it's snow clearing, then Craig can get a little foreshadowing and say, oh yeah, I got some information on this and so on.
Okay.
I think we're gonna take, yes.
No, it's okay, I'll wait.
No, we got 15 minutes. I think it's good.
I like
Well,
to hear.
it's regarding the material for tonight.
Okay, yeah,
I just had a quick question.
yeah, sure.
I thought last meeting that council had said they didn't want to have any part in the ad hoc committee selection. That's what I've heard, but I noticed that in the somewhere, it says council will select. So I just wondered,
So one of the question period portions on that is we can't answer a question regarding anything on the agenda. Right? So you can ask something about policy or something that happened last week or something you're concerned about, but you can't ask questions about something we're going to talk later. So when we get there, we can clarify that exactly.
and my question is, did you say that, yes or no, last meeting?
Can't answer. It's-
Oh, you can.
We don't have that context. So when we get to that portion of the agenda, we'll debate it. And you can look at it through another lens, and say, oh yeah, no, they're still on track, or oh, that's not what they said, but then what we said and what we vote on are two different things, right? Okay. Little convoluted, but that's a good question. So now we know how it's working. Okay. Moving on then, question period. Okay. Delegations. All right. First up, we have Rowan House. We have Kelly Smith and Lynette with an I, Solden. So ladies, if you want to come up to the hot seat right here in front. And you've got 15 minutes, I think, give or take.
Okay.
It's usually what we do. We're going to let you run through your presentation. And up to you, we can ask questions on the fly, or we can let you finish and then take your questions. What would you prefer?
They let them fly.
All right, cool. Well, that being said, from Rowan House, I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves and we'll just go from there.
Thank you, Mary Crane.
All right.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the opportunity to have us here today. My name is Kelly Smith, and I am the Resource Development Team Lead for Rowan House, and this is our lovely Executive Director, Lynette Solden. We've been in operation for 23 years, where Rowan House Emergency Shelter moved from a 2-bedroom basement suite here in Black Diamond, as it was formerly known, to a 24-bed facility in High River. Originally named Eagle Women's Emergency Shelter, the shelter was only large enough to house 2 women with up to 3 children each. And for the benefit of council that's coming in via live stream, can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're here today to provide a short update on some of the supports that we have available to the residents of Diamond Valley and how we can support you to make a difference for people in your life who may be affected by violence and abuse, or perhaps the constituents who make them the hospital work.
Our symbol is the rowan tree, commonly known as mountain ash. You may ask, why is the rowan tree our symbol? The berries often retained throughout the winter on the rowan tree symbolizes the endurance of life through the dark of the year, and the tree itself was said to afford protection to the dwelling in which it grew. The rowan tree has traditionally been associated with peace, sanctuary, privacy, and beauty. The rowan tree embodies and symbolizes what we at Rowan House stand for, that every person is safe and secure and lives without violence and abuse. We are proud to have a rowan tree in front of our yard. At this time, I'd like to share a story with you about a little boy named Jeff. Have you ever thought about the healing power of a pancake? It all started late fall when a mother and her child, who both experienced physical, emotional, and financial abuse, as well as stalking, arrived at the emergency shelter. The basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter had been continually restricted or compromised prior to them coming to Rowan House. This one beautiful warm fall day, with all the magnificent fall colors as a backdrop, the children of Rowan House were outside doing what all children want to do: connect with the outdoors, play, and have fun. There was laughter, big smiles, and everyone seemed to be having a good time. While all this excitement was going on, one of the children, who I will name, was wearing a baseball cap, took off his hat and pulled out a pancake. He quickly took a bite of the pancake, thinking no one would see, and just as quickly placed the pancake back under his hat and continued to play. One of the child development workers noticed this and asked Jack why there was a pancake under his hat. Proudly, he said, "I did not want to leave the pancake from breakfast, and a safe place for the pancake was under my baseball hat. Like this, I can eat the pancake when I'm hungry." The children development replied, "That is clever. How did you learn to do that?" "Because I'm smart. He said, I love my baseball cap because I can find more pancakes to eat than whenever I'm hungry. And then with that, off he ran to continue playing with the other children. It's because of programs like Rowan House that children like Jack can feel joy while playing with other kids again and learning new and healthier coping mechanisms to address and experience his past. Due to the programs like Rowan House, we hope is that Jack and his mom will peacefully enjoy pancakes together around the home kitchen table in the future. We serve the second largest geographic area in the province. The area served are Foothills County, the MD of Little Creek, and Vulcan County. At Rowan Health Society, we provide a continuum of trauma-informed programs and services to help break the cycle of domestic violence and abuse in our communities by providing crisis intervention, long-term support, and preventative education and awareness. In doing so, we work to fulfill our vision that we can all thrive in safe and empowering relationships. So one of the first things that probably comes to you when we think about Rowan House is our short-term emergency shelter facility for women with or without children who have left violent and abusive situations are in need of a safe place to go. While this is our core mandate, we have grown to be much more than a short-term emergency shelter with 24 beds. We have a 24-hour support line that provides telephone and text responses to all individuals seeking crisis support, information, or referrals to community resources that best suit their needs. The 24-hour support line is available in multiple languages through Canada. We have a specialized child's program that not only allows children to be kids again, but trained staff provide them with the tools for understanding their own big emotions and strategies for coping and healing. We also provide one-to-one support and advocacy in the community setting through our outreach program for individuals who may need our services, but not necessarily a shelter. This program is open to any individual, no matter what their gender identity or sexual orientation. And of course, we work from an upstream approach as well by providing preventative education and awareness for youth in schools, healthy relationship groups, and trainings and workshops for the public. Lastly, our Safe at Home pilot project designed to be an alternative approach to serving families where the person who is perpetrating the violence and abuse is the one to move to a cool down location and engages in programming, while the individual and children who are experiencing abuse maintaining the stability of their home and support networks. Yeah.
We also have some really neat things that we've been working on. But before we focus on these initiatives, I want to reiterate why these services continue to be so very important. Despite seeing strong improvement in the 2000s, the Stats Canada report released this past October showed that police reported family violence has increased for the 5th year in a row, where intimate partner violence specifically has increased for the 7th straight year. Meanwhile, Corporal Leon Beatty, the domestic violence coordinator with the Southern Alberta District for the RCMP, reported that in a 7-month period in 2021, officers responded to over 2,300 occurrences of domestic violence in her coverage area. Those are the reported cases. So there's a lot that definitely go unreported. And Corporal Beatty says that in her experience, that number is high. And COVID played a role you were speaking on. So in 2022, Rowan House received over 2,100 calls to our 24-hour support line, up from just 1,500 the year before. When we introduced text to call opportunities for people, that was very soft, engaging. During that time, we admitted 216 women and children, up from just 130 the year before, which was partly due to the fact that we have returned to full capacity after living with AHS, communal living restrictions, but it's still 176 people up from our 2019 pre-pandemic years. So that's 216 women. So we are definitely seeing a growing need, as well as a growing severity in what our clients are dealing with in terms of the types of abuse and coping mechanisms, as well as greater mental health and substance over-counter use issues.
But moving forward to address all these complexities, thanks to your grant, that we were able to have a court support worker to assist the clients of various programs through the court process and help them understand the different types of protection orders they can have implemented for their families. We also have a research and evaluation lead who is helping us ensure data integrity and that all our work is truly having the impact we hope and expect. the importance of data storytelling. We have a shelter facility and safety advisor dedicated to enhance the safety of all our staff members and clients. And we continue to expand our preventative program to empower the communities to recognize the signs of domestic violence and abuse among your friends, family, and coworkers, so that you can support them and direct them to the services they need. We're pleased to offer lunch and learn workshops to everyone who is interested, as well as targeting trainings to industries that might be more likely to meet someone in need, like hairdressers, groomers, nurses, and dentists. And finally, we know that not everyone has a lot of time to take these kinds of trainings, so we have an educational podcast anyone can take in from the convenience, comfort, and privacy of their car, home, or walking path. It's available for free on most audio streaming.
All of these programs, excuse me, are accessible and offered at no cost, thanks to the generosity from our community. We do receive an annual grant from the government, provincial government, but it is restricted to the emergency shelter program alone. It primarily ensures that we have shelter support work on site 24/7 and able to answer our support work. We haven't seen an increase in that funding in nearly a decade, since 2014. So the cost of inflation is kind of an interesting one in 9 years. Everything else that we provide, we have to fundraise through grants and donations. Our focus really is on collaborating with the community. From last year's Picnic with a Purpose, bringing organizations and businesses together, round 2 being planned as we speak, to being part of the Alberta Health Services Domestic Abuse Response Team, or DART program, as it's otherwise known, at the High River Hospital. Like you, we want to do our part to ensure Diamond Valley remains a safe and great place to live and have a family. Everyone's path to addressing domestic violence and abuse in their life looks different, which is why we have so many options and why we're working to raise awareness for all these different options. Our hope is that after today's presentation, you have a little more confidence about how to refer someone, should they trust you to share what they're going through. Thank you again for the opportunity to do that. It's great support.
Excellent. Thank you.
There are brochures for each and every one of our programs in front of you there. So feel free to take them. If you have any questions, it's very welcome to reach out and we'll be happy to answer.
You've got 7 minutes or 6. Yeah. Right? So that's all different.
Yeah.
That's actually quite impressive. Not surprised about the number jumps. COVID did damage to so many things. And this is really one that's obviously been cute. But I'll open it up to council for any questions. Aaron? I'm wondering, how much does it cost to run per year? Programs as you're set up right now, just dealing with what you have.
That's a very good question. We were just working on our next fiscal budget, and it would cost us.
I can tell you that we did see a 30% increase in the needs last year.
Yeah.
So our fundraising goal was 30% higher. That is in one fiscal year. So we went from
Yeah, you can do that. Yes.
$6.99 at page 25 is what we fundraise. But that's just for operational expenses. That doesn't include any of these programs that we've outlined for you or the additions that we made this year. All of those have been grants that we've raised money for and are suspect to continuance based on our ability to obtain more grants. So, the court support program, we have high confidence that we'll be able to continue with that because of the funder that we have in that particular one. Research and evaluation, that takes some creative finding.
That's a grant.
That's a grant for sure. And having any of the extras that we try to do, our prevention team that's out in the classrooms doing grades 2, 5, 8, and 11 and healthy relationships, starting with kindness and bullying, healthy relationships and boundary setting as we get older into those teen years. From the candy we hand out to those presentations to the gas to get us there. It's all fun.
We do get 1.3 from Senior Community and Social Services. So we do get that. However, I don't know the number now because I went through this. Had to think back in my memory. And so if we weren't successful in getting the grants for our current programming, the team would then have to raise we think about 1.3 million in order to keep our current status with that. If we weren't successful in that, there's a lot of money to be raised. So that would be a big jump from the 20. We are busy doing grants. That's a big component for us to also continue with some of the programming. We know how key and important it is for the community and also for people who experience it. So all of it kind of mostly comes into place. But again, it is usually the grants are only 1 year. We are trying to put a push to move grants to be 3 years. That would help tremendously across the board. So
For stability.
yeah, your sustainability and you train individuals that get really great in their role to support the community. And then sometimes they get nervous and they're looking for positions that are more permanent. So we're kind of in this little bit of a vicious cycle, but we do really rely, like I said, on the grants to complement us. Sorry, I knew the number was in here. I knew it.
And I can tell you that, one of our big fundraisers, we're moving it to the Turner Valley Golf Course this year in Black Diamond.
That name will.
Diamond Valley. No, is it still gonna be the Turner? Valley?
Oh, yeah, I don't see like, it won't change. Yeah.
Doric Actors.
Yeah.
Welcome to mark your calendars for July 6th, because that is the magic day for us. And the picnic with the purpose is scheduled for June the 11th in High River in George Lane Park. Everybody is welcome.
Okay, Councillor Gordon.
A couple of questions, and first and foremost, I love your mountain ash. I have one in my backyard, so that'll remind me of rolling house. That's pretty cool. Couple of questions, one directed to you, one directed at our community services manager, and I'll start with that one if I may through the chair. With our FCSS, is there a manner, a mechanism we can use to regularly support rolling house through our FCSS funding mechanism? And then I do have a second question.
Yes, thank you for your question. Councilor Board through the chair. We have annually supported Rolling House for various programs. Primarily, I think it's been the outreach program that we were just speaking about. And this year we granted them $3,000 for plastics. And they typically get the full amount. However, our annual funding, although we do have a 3-year agreement with the province, is something that we have to issue according to our budget cycles. So I'm not sure if you can change that. Obviously, it would help many of our agencies if they knew that they could rely on consistent funding, but that is how it works at the moment. I've never heard though from the board members that there was any concern.
No, thank you so much. That's great to hear that we're able to do that right now. Another question I have, I see online here, your emergency shelters provides 30-day support.
Yes.
Is there an after that support for these ladies? Obviously, the need isn't just 30 days.
So one of the biggest thing is we do partner with second stage shelters, and so there is a shared intake, and we're going to Sunshine and Discovery House, and they provide the second stage. One thing that we do experience, and it just sort of depends, we've had a really bad situation where there was no movement. And so what was happening is the clients that were accessing emergency shelter weren't able to get into second stage. There was a long wait list. And so the system started to really become, I would call it backlogged, and clients were really concerned about the next steps for some of our clients. One thing is for 30 days, but we will never leave a client stranded. So we would just do extensions. But what we have to do, because our main funder is the Senior Community and Social Services, we contact our contractor, advise that we have to extend some of the stays, and just so they're advised. The other backlog is safe and affordable housing within the community has also been a really major concern. And so that's another thing. So whatever we try to do is a couple of things. Is we try to extend, we try to find other placements, and we try to get them on the wait list as soon as possible with second stage, or like I said, working out some plans. Westlands is another beautiful opportunity that we also access for our clients as well, and do those partnerships. So we couldn't do it without, like I said, partnering with other agencies. So we have really good specialty in regards to that. So I will say I've heard there's a little bit of a shift. I heard there's been some more things of second stage. So that is a really big celebration for our clients. And so it kind of allows for us to kind of keep, those emergency clients and those having those opportunities for to come to the shelter. Because that's a hard thing when you're getting calls and the individuals have nowhere safe to go, right? So we never leave people stranded, and we have to get very creative. is the best way I can say it.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Nothing else, council?
Can I ask one?
Yeah, okay.
Just in regards to, what branch of the government do you guys get your funding from? You mentioned that it hasn't been 10 years since you've gotten an increase. After we come out of the delegation, I'd like to potentially ask council if they're in support of a letter to, somebody, like,
Yes.
you know, but I'd like to know what brand.
No, we're all out.
So, yeah, so
I
I
will
just like,
send that to- I will send that to you.
okay,
Because I have actually board contractors and all that, so
Okay.
that if that's okay.
yeah, that would be great. I'd like to just, you know, ask them to reconsider 3 years instead of the 1 year to
Yeah.
start. And just to look at the increase in funding, because, you know, 10 years, I sit on the Westlands board. We had our meeting last night and their funding changes all the time. Based on oil prices or, you know, whatever. So for you guys to be sitting here and not having seen any change in 10 years, I find it, considering the work that you do and how valuable it is, a bit of a head scratcher. So if you could get that
I
to us.
did, and just wanted to let you know, it's 2014 since there's been wage increases and 2015 since operational.
Okay.
So we actually have two kind of competing authorities.
Okay.
One of the things that they did advise, there was Jan Weimer from Alberta Council of Women's Shelter did do a media release about that. And the one thing is that there was a response that there was quote COVID money that did come to emergency shelters. So they saw that. But we were in, I mean, fairness, we were in crisis ourselves, trying to keep, maintain and support people. So that one was really for really high crisis times for us during that period of time. So I know that they see that it's that, but that hasn't changed the fact that the 2014 and 2015. Yeah.
So really, yeah, the
It's a
numbers are
specified time limit and
Yeah.
there's nothing beyond that. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's the
Okay.
exact same thing with Westlands. Here's a lot of COVID money.
Yeah.
And it was spent on things that you needed to spend it on. It wasn't like, wow, this is all surplus. You know, we have nothing to spend this on. Yeah, no, it wasn't. And in fact, we were looking, I think the deficit right now is 191,000 still outstanding with Westlands. That's how much more they spent last year, just in that 1 year. So reserves, you know, or fundraising or whatever it may have you. So thank you so much for the presentation.
Yeah.
Please get that information.
I will, that will come to you as soon as possible. I appreciate everybody's support. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mayor, wrapped it up perfectly. So I'll just go like this and send you on your way.
Awesome.
thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. Very good to you.
Nice. So we'll look for that in an email and then we can address that at our next council meeting and see if we can come up with it. All right, next up for business is our local Foothills Energy Co-op, Mr. Ken Wortley. And Daryl, you're coming up to him soon? For sure.
Great news.
There you go. All right, gentlemen, the same rules shall apply. We'll give you 15 minutes. I'm gonna hand it over to you guys. You're gonna tell us all the exciting things that Foothills Energy Co-op has
No,
on
it's
the go.
done.
And I don't think there's much more to it than that. Looks like Ken's got some checks for us. Is that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you're excited there, Ken.
I just have some things I'd like to pass out.
Yeah, you bet.
Council, if I may.
Thank you.
All right, and I'm gonna give you the floor right now, Ken. It's all yours.
Thank you.
So you can start away. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Ken.
Cindy, I'll do that.
Yes, leave for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you kindly.
Thank you.
All right. Probably let you know I'm already a member, so you don't need to sell me. Right.
Well, I've certainly been around Turner Valley Black Diamond today, in Diamond Valley, and certainly met a lot of our clients in this area. So to them and to you, I say thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Ken Wardley. I am a director of Foothills Energy Co-op. I look after their marketing and visibility portfolio. I am accompanied this evening by our colleague Daryl Perlow, who is our board chair at the co-op. Congratulations on sitting, and I keep track on this. Congratulations on sitting as the first elected council representing this new community in Alberta, Diamond Valley. We are pleased to partner with you in promoting this area and to be part of its branding. What a great name, Diamond Valley. It has a certain ring to it of prosperity. The founders of Foothills Energy Co-op had a vision that this area was going to bloom. It is obvious that in this bloom we are looking at now. You may know some of these visionaries from this area. Larry Kapusta, Murray Nolan, Graham Lettner, Wanda Shiwan, Angie Simmons, and Rod Schmulders. Our head office is located here. Part of our mandate is to promote Diamond Valley, and indeed, our bylaws dictate that. Additionally, as a cooperative, we share our profits with the communities that we serve in the form of bursaries. Since our inception, we have supported a solar project at the Westwood. I'm sure you're aware of this great restaurant. We have also given 2 bursaries to Oilfields High School to assist them with their sustainability project. And we understand that a third bursary request is forthcoming. The High River United Church also received some funding from us for the installation of 78 solar panels that were installed 1 year ago. We have granted also to the Highwood High School a bursary to assist with their outdoor learning center. And now to the matter at hand. It is our plan to produce a 2024-25 month at a glance calendar. This calendar will be forwarded to towns and cities throughout Alberta. We believe that this is important for Diamond Valley to be represented in this publication as an introduction to others in the province. We are next door to the world's most popular playground. We need to capitalize on what the area of Diamond Valley has to offer. I firmly believe that the very best placement of a Diamond Valley advertisement in the calendar is on the outside back cover. Our primary target for advertising will be businesses in the Foothills area. We feel that this 12-month publication will enhance your presence for the years 24 and 25. The campaign is relatively inexpensive for a year-long advertising presence that will reach many other Alberta communities. Your ad will appear in full color. All we will need from you is to supply us with camera-ready artwork for the printing. The cost of this full-page ad will be $1,600 plus GST, payable in 2 payments, one by March 30th and the balance by October 15th. I'm happy to show you a mock-up of what this calendar will look like. This is what we're proposing as our front page here. And this, of course, will be open for advertising on both of these pages. And then this will be, in this particular instance, it's December 22, but it would be December 23. And then we go on to January, February, March, April. And these are all areas that people can write in their time they want to be at a certain location. The other thing that we will do also is we will have advertising spaces available for people in half and quarter. And I've also put this on the back cover so that you can see exactly what it might be looking. So that's just where I would propose your ad to be.
And,
We all,
if I could, what is the color representative of the horse? Is that the local area? Is that a company? Is that Anchor Tea? What is that?
these horses are something that's been out by the Calgary Exhibition Stampede.
Okay.
Calgary Stampede horses.
Yes. Yeah. We will also look after all of the distribution of the calendars from our office here. Thank you for your time this evening. We wish you well in promoting this most beautiful area of the foothills. If you have any questions, please ask.
Okay, first up is Veronica, then we got that.
I'm sorry.
3 questions.
Yes.
Where is the distribution? What is the print run? And what is the deadline?
Okay, we expect, I'll try and answer that, not necessarily in the order, but
Okay.
we expect to go to print in October, for distribution in November, which would start the December part. Your second question was,
What's the print run? How many print?
oh, sorry, that would be probably somewhere, well, in this area, it would be probably about 75 to 80% of your houses in here. Through the rest of Alberta, it would be probably cities and province, cities and towns in the province, which would be represented approximately 2,000.
And they're distributing within the cities and towns, bulk of it here, 3,000 copies.
Yes.
Got all three? All three?
Yeah.
Heather, then Hazel?
So this may sound like a silly question, but the purpose of this, would it be to draw further customers to put
Yes, that's correct.
energy?
Yes.
So,
We feel that this area has been, shall I say, neglected as far as promotion is concerned. And we feel that this is one way of being able to get people down to the Diamond Valley.
yeah, to the Diamond Valley, but like, will you draw like actual customers to Foothills Energy from outside of Diamond Valley, like you're gonna distribute? to-
Oh, well,
Other
if you draw
towns.
extra customers in from Foothills Energy, that would be wonderful also.
Okay, that was my question, like outside of Diamond
Yes,
Valley,
of course.
are you hoping to draw customers
Absolutely.
in, so from Calgary or from Cochrane or?
Yes. Well, we cover all those areas now anyway, because we cover from Milk River to Fort McMurray.
Okay, see, that's, I didn't know.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Excellent. Hazel?
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I sit on the Sheep River Library
Yes,
and I'm also part of the Sheep River Library Solar Power Project.
yes.
And I understand that we will be also receiving a grant. And we hope to have that project done this year. And it probably will be 90 solar panels will go on to the library.
We are very, very anxiously waiting for your bursary to come in. We're aware that there's something happening. I think there's some logistics that have to be worked out with the solar project. But as soon as we get that worked out, then we are most anxious to work with you.
Like the feasibility studies, they have gone in, a couple of grant applications have gone in.
Right.
So we should hear back on one in March, sometime this March. And then we'll be working with the town to start centering up the tankery.
And we're, as I said, we're very anxious to hear about that. So, we've talked about this for
Any year.
the last number of years, I guess.
Yeah.
And, we're trying, we want to help you.
Yeah.
And, the more customers that we have as a Foothills Energy,
It makes.
the more we can contribute to.
Yeah.
Or to the communities,
Yeah, and we
And I
very
think
much
that's really
appreciate your
important. because we do and want to. I might also mention, Hazel, that we, meaning Daryl and myself and all of our other directors, we're all volunteers. We do not get paid to do anything that we're doing.
That's good to know. That's good. Very good to know.
So, any other questions? Like I said, I'm a member. I've been a member since the day they started. It totally makes common sense to me that we support local. And this is the perfect example of how you support something local. You're gonna pay that money to the big guy anyway. Why not give it to someone who's gonna give some back? So this is the perfect example. Olds really, they really broke the model on co-ops. And they have a solid foundation. We're looking at an example of how it can become extremely successful. They're doing it. They were way ahead of their time. Even when they did their fiber optics, they were way ahead of their time in their thinking. And it's good to see that you guys are also into the fiber optic business now as part of the parcel. Could you just give us a quick example of how that's part of the new co-op, the fiber optics that you're working for rural setup?
We have just completed, or in the process of completing, a very major project in British Columbia. It's being done by the Holiday Inn RV Resort just north of the airport in Kelowna. And there they have condominiums, they have single family homes, they have park models, they have RV sites. And what they have done with us is we've been able to offer them fiber optic, including electricity, natural gas, TV, and internet through this. We're just completing that now. It should be done probably by the 15th to the 20th of April. The people that we talked to are extremely happy with that whole package. And they're very, very sad. The reception that we're getting is phenomenal. They just love what we've done. So that sort of gives you an idea of, that was the first project that we to do. We've had other conversations with other areas, High River. We've talked to Foothills. We're in the process of getting something lined up with Foothills County. We want to talk to them also. Because the Canadian government and the provincial government have come together back in September of 2022 and said, we want to broadband all of these smaller communities. So they've offered $80,000. Now, we just had a meeting with Foothills County. And they, interestingly enough, were not aware of this money that's available. We showed them the letter that we have, and they were in that letter. It was showing a little hamlet, if you will, called Cayley. That's what they're prepared to fund. They're also prepared to fund Little Bow Campground, Harrington, Moss Lee, all these small areas. And there's money there. As a matter of fact, there's $80,000 to those communities if they want to take advantage of it. So there's a real good buy-in on this, and the fiber optic part of our business is still new, but we're sure growing, and we're getting all of this information put together.
Good. Thanks.
Does that answer?
Well, that's perfect. It's good to see that the government, both provincial and federal, are looking for the rural.
Well, it's there. As of September 22, the letter is out,
For a long time.
and they've given us a list of the communities. There's about 50 or 60 communities that they've listed. Albeit, a lot of them are in northern Alberta, but there are several in southern Alberta.
And we're looking at it as an opportunity to bundle things, right? That everybody bundles. I mean, we're electric, natural gas, internet, solar power. So this is just one more thing in our stable to be able to offer to the customer as a way of bringing more people into Foothills. And I mean, we've been reasonably successful. We started in 2016 in the kitchen table here. And now we're close to 1,000 members. So, I mean, it's growing, right? And people are finally getting on to the Foothills Co-op boat, you will. We're very happy for the amount of support we've had from the community. Really are.
Excellent. All right, well, we will
Just to
ask another question.
One question.
Yeah.
I just got my bill for you guys today
Oh.
for electricity. It's $50.
$50.
50.
He
Wow,
lives in an.
that's
I
wonderful.
have solar, but it was.
That's a good bill.
Well, you thank the government for $75 off that, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
That helps, but that's gonna end.
Well, that's really nice to hear because I can tell you that we, and I don't want to get off on another subject. Alberta Health has always been our healthcare has been very fragile, as you all know. And my wife had a brain bleed about 4 weeks ago, and she had to be ambulanced into Foothills Hospital. The care and attention that she had in that hospital was second to none. It was unbelievable. So it was so good.
Good.
Anyway, because of that, just to add a little bit to what you were saying, my wife took it upon herself today to phone Alberta Health and say, look, I had 5 nurses looking after me. I had a surgical doctor looking after me. And they were phenomenal. People phone in because they're complaining. I'm phoning saying I've had a wonderful experience and they have treated me royally.
More people like you, Jen.
So I'm just going by my experience.
Oh, no, and I appreciate the positivity. There's just been a lot of bad energy around.
Very
but
nice.
It's really nice to hear positive energy.
But so I get off into the.
No, I appreciate it, and hopefully all is well with your wife as well. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, absolutely. Then one quick one. So that front cover,
Yes,
who's sponsoring that?
okay.
Who's sponsoring that?
This one here is done by us, Foothills Energy.
Yeah, so can we be on the front?
This will be on our front yard.
Right. Gotcha.
You would be on
We go for
the back.
Okay. And yeah, there's conversation. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, we know the numbers, we know our spot, we know our picture, we're good. Okay, if we have no other questions, then I'm gonna thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate
Thank
you
you very
coming
much.
down here and highlight some of the things you guys do for us
Appreciate it.
as a community. And again, for being part of the community and contributing back to Diamond Valley. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, gentlemen.
And just before I leave, I'd just like to say, hello to a guy that I haven't seen for years, years.
Oh,
John? Oh, my friend. Good to see you.
Old guy's the old guy.
I get around the.
Yeah. you- One McLeod days, eh?
That's cute. Yeah, I think, I think we can, for sure. Yeah, let's just go right there and see if that makes sense. That's where we want to go on the Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Okay, ask your question. Wayne.
Okay, so delegations are over, so delegation decisions, 6.2. I would like to make a motion to direct administration to write a letter to increase funding to Rowan House and also reconsider the grant funding from 3 or 2 3 years from 1, but I think it wordsmith that a little bit better. Also reconsider grant funding for up to 3 years. Maybe something along those lines? No, not that neat.
Sorry, I'm.
You'd
Let me
recommend
make
letter
this
of
bigger.
support to the funding,
The government.
the government funding area.
Yeah, we got a kind of bracket.
Yeah, she said it, their provincial funding hasn't changed in 10 years.
Yeah, that would work. Yeah. I believe so.
Question increase funding and a term of 3 years.
I'm being treated.
Yes.
I'll accept that.
Okay, so are you referencing the province funding 3 years?
Yeah, they're the ones that are responsible for the grants, not CAO.
Yes. Ours is at CSS. We're
Yes.
Bang of that.
After, increase in funding, can we put, for Rowan House,
Yes,
please?
thank you.
No problem. Thank you. And maybe to consider a term of 3 years. And to consider a term of 3 years.
They
So,
like a funding term?
yeah,
Yeah,
or a
funding.
grant, yeah, like a timeline, or I'm not sure, whatever. I'm relying on my.
Let's leave no room for interpretation.
No.
More
I
words is
mean,
better.
I can't, that's a head scratcher.
All right, you want to read that out again?
Yeah, so motion, to direct administration to write a letter of support to the provincial government funding arm requesting an increase in funding for Rowan House and to consider a funding term of 3 years.
Just with that, can we add a nice big bullet chart, maybe full of portfolio of all the good things that Roundhouse does for our area? Would probably
That'd be.
We'll put it in the letter.
check,
You're gonna.
make sure to.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Provincial government grants funding, do you want to cover grant funding
Well, if we knew what
or just?
division they were, we can put it in, right?
Yeah.
Could I do friendly amendment?
So maybe, or maybe the addition would be to work with, administration to direct administration to work with Rowan House to prepare a letter of support.
Yeah.
And then they can work with Rowan House to get the right terminology. Yeah, that's it. That's all I'm
And
suggesting.
if you wanted to delete the after funding for Rowan House, because Rowan House is in already now, further, that's.
I think it's
Okay, it's good, okay.
I
I just don't want to be. Sorry.
I would like to consider including our local MLA in this letter as well. Since it falls under his, making certain that our MLA is included.
QC. Yeah. RJ?
Okay. And then Roger Reed is still in the high river, I guess he's the larger of the. It's here. So Vulcan is grant money.
It's okay, we got one MLA.
And grant money to the appropriate MLAs. Because they're that's a pretty large section, right? 3 massive counties. Because I think Grand Hunter would be part of Vulcan County too. Doesn't he go from Vulcan County all the way almost to San Francisco?
We just slide back, go MLAs for representative.
I think so.
List of MLAs for service district areas. Perfect.
Thanks, that's awesome.
Done.
Lovely.
One more time.
One more time.
To direct administration to work with Rowan House to prepare a letter of support to the provincial government funding arm requesting an increase in funding for Rowan House and to consider a funding term of 3 years and to CC MLA's representative Rowan House service area.
It's almost like a declaration.
I didn't stand up. I stand up for my declaration.
Almost.
Yeah.
Wow, we got flavor. All right. Any more points? All in favor? Excellent. Thank you.
And you got Cindy on there.
All
Yeah,
right.
holiday, give thumbs up.
Now, the only, I'll lead off the Foothills Energy one here. We have a bit of an issue because we have our new branding and marketing, which hasn't been revealed public yet. So the deadline is March 30.
No, the deadline for the
October.
first payment is March, and the second payment is October, and the deadline for part.
Oh, okay.
So we commit to the, okay, so.
I'd like to put a motion forward regarding this.
Okay.
The council, not sure how to word, but the council, consider funding the Foothills Energy Co-op calendar in the amount of $1,600. So Consider it in our budget deliberations,
I would state the 2024 calendar, because that's the year of publication.
2024 calendar. Council consider it in our budget, 2023 budget deliberations.
I'm just gonna put that up there. The council consider funding for the energy co-op 24-25 calendar. 16 plus GST and third is 2023 operating budget. Is that operating or capital?
Operating.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go to Gordon.
What, if I may through the chair and having our Ms. LeBlanc and Ms. Middleton with us, what's our average advertising budget that we have? Would this be something that we can fit in there without a large element of deliberations?
Thank you, Councilor Gordon, for the question or through the chair. This is typically something that would be considered amongst many options, and we have to evaluate the reach, the exposure, and benefit to the community. Certainly, with total respect to the organization, understanding the value that it does bring to many benefits, it is something that I would probably compare with other advertising options and then present that to council at budget. For my side of it, through community services, there's a few different arms of it, if you will, and that this would likely be considered economic development advertising. And quite frankly, it wouldn't be considered in that. It would be asked for in that particular budget, but this is more of a community and maybe administrative type of expense. Because normally it wouldn't really hit on all of the exposures that we would be looking for. If anything, we might develop our own locally. We have to take a look at distribution and what kind of mileage we would get out of that kind of advertising. And what council may want to consider is if there's an opportunity to be able to work more closely with the co-op and be able to help them provide more of that information, and depending on the purpose of it, whether it's to gain more customers or just expose the challenge. But for myself, I would be taking a look and comparing that with other options. And I wouldn't know until I did that representative to council. But it's a fair amount of our budget because currently I think it's about $3,000 that we use.
Better to add.
We need to discuss it.
That's my point, yeah.
And if I may,
Yes, please.
share a comment, just to give a context, so our budget for administration for 2022 is $1,500. So that would eat up the majority of the budget for administration if we go down a similar path as far as advertising and promotion.
Separate line item figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't, sucks because I want to say certain things, but until we release branding, got to zip it.
So sad.
Right? I know. So, okay, so this would probably be the best option then is to bring this forward this way. And then we can kind of put some pegs in the hole. Okay. All right, we're gonna take that motion, we're gonna put it to the table if there's no further so clarity. Good. Monique, you addressed what you wanted to address, because I know you wanted to mention as well. I'm assuming you built that into your answer.
It was just to say that it should be considered a budget.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right. Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Thank you, Derek. Okay, well, that was fun. I like delegations. Right? Perfect. All right, moving on. Bylaws, public hearing decisions. We have none. 7.2 bylaw 2023-15 to amend council committee's bylaw. So we're going to slap that one up on the old screeno here. I have my page and a half right here. All right, council. So this is the purpose of this one is to amend the council committee bylaw to establish the council remuneration review committee and adding term of reference for this committee to the bylaw. Sean, was there any further background information that you had worked out on the administration side that you needed to point out here for us?
Sure, I wanted to take the credit for this, Mayor Crane, however, like Lisa did most of the investigative work on this. And in fact, she went through 3, 6, 9, 12, approximately 13 other communities our size, remuneration committee structures to come forward with this particular piece. I will say they're all different from each other. So she tried to take what was a sort of a median route in this. And I will reflect on the comment made earlier in the meeting about the makeup and appointment of the committee. Just since it was brought forward. What she has proposed is and I know there was a variety of discussions at our last meeting, that the board members be recruited and appointed by council. I will say that is a commonality amongst the ones that we've utilized. However, I will say St. Albert does include a clause in theirs that I dug forward here during the last presentation. That council hereby delegates the CAO the authority to appoint members to the committee. So that is an option you have. That shows up under number 4, membership and composition, where the committee public members can be recruited and appointed by council. So I only point that out to you to suggest this is sort of a makeup of a number of different remuneration ad hoc committee terms of reference. And it's there for your reading pleasure.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna go Gordon first and then Cloyd.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, if I may through the chair, CAO patients, one of our requests was to do this with anonymity. I assumed if we were to amend number 4, the composition to appoint the CAO to appoint the committee, because I know as a committee of council, it has to be appointed by council. So if we can have that workaround where we maintain that anonymity through you being the one to appoint these members at large, that would be my preference.
So let's just talk about that for the transparency portion. So break that down. So Joe Blow walks in and says, I want to be on that committee. And 8 other people say, I want on that committee too. So we direct them, go into the office, fill out the volunteer paperwork, membership fee, blah, 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 whatever it is. They submit it to administration. Sean looks them over and says, long outstanding member of society, previous counselor, yada, yada, yada. Those are my tops. He selects that committee. He then gives them the work. They do their work. They come back. We never know who they are.
Yes, that's right.
Is that how that works?
That's what he's suggesting, I believe.
And what other communities do it that way? I see you now, Cindy. So I'm just curious. So there are other communities that do that.
I have not seen that particular methodology utilized. Okay. I will say count in the ones I've reviewed here, the bulk of them council appoints the members.
Okay.
So that would remove the anonymity portion.
Yeah, so I'm curious about that. And I mean, an appointment is appointment, but let's go to Cindy first and then we'll come to you.
Yeah, I just, when I went through it, I was just wondering if we could say if there's more than 5 people, it's done by a lottery. We just pull names out of a hat. I don't think we'll ever have a problem with more than 5 applying, but if we did, I just like to make it less work and completely impartial. So I like the idea of lottery.
Deputy Mayor.
And I really like that idea. But for the sake of saying it, it's very, like, when applications are given, it's easy to cover up a name. If we have 10 applicants, the names are covered, we pick them based on experience. And then you still wouldn't know who they were. So that maintains anonymity as well.
Based on experience.
Just bases it on what you see, like blind dating, except, not that I know anything about blind dating. You don't know who you're picking, right? You just look at it and you say, this looks good. This person has, like, I liked your examples of previous council member. We've seen a lot of comments going on from previous council in regards to this. I don't have any problem with any of that. So, but I do like Cindy's or Councillor Holiday's recommendation as well.
Well, one thing I might add to that is typically committee would make a presentation to the council with their final report.
Yes.
So if you move to an anonymity selection, that does discount. I thought maybe your blind date reference was to our finance.
Okay. All all right, I like how you put that, you blank it out and then you're looking at experience. Councillor Gordon.
Yeah, and if I can, speaking from my experience in the nonprofit realm, whenever it came to discussing my salary, I left the room. I didn't even know the discussion. I didn't know what the decision was until it was made. And I love the anonymity piece. I love the lottery piece. When it comes from presentation council, Sean's their spokesperson, says this is what's been presented. You guys have a decision to move forward. I believe that it maintains integrity in the community and it gives a little bit of security for our community for the decision that they make.
Councillor Coyle.
I'm sure what kind of experience they're looking for here. You get elected to council and your first task is to say, hey, you can raise it, you can leave it, you can lower it, but you don't have any experience. So I'm not sure what kind of experience we'd be looking for. I
Only participate.
exactly.
That's what I'm looking for.
Hazel, I'll go to you first.
I like the idea of doing just a little lottery, just pulling the names out of the hat. And as sort of point, you're going to be looking for somebody that has the accounting background, research background, to be able to do the, if you'd be able to do the comparison.
Heather, then I'll comment.
I actually agree with Hazel. I think that the lottery idea is really great and they are an advisory committee to council, and like the reality is that most communities in Alberta, very few have a committee to do this. They set their own rates of pay. So I think this is very good to include the community in this, but they are an ad hoc committee that reports to council. And so I like the idea of just pulling names out of a hat and going that way.
Transparent.
Yeah, I think that's great, and then go from there. But
I'll go to Marion.
So just to support that, pull the names out of a hat, then we do get the presentation, I would assume, from the members. So the anonymity is not there. But to your point, I think that it's irrelevant if we're not selecting the members.
Definitely.
And there's nothing, it's completely weird, if we don't know who the people are until either, shortly before the presentation, then it's not. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty clear what they're to do
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of reference. So
Well, now have admin support to walk them through.
yeah, absolutely. They'll have it in support. So
Yeah, on one hand, I'll just finish mine. I agree with the blanket the names and look at the rest. But I can totally get behind the lottery. That's simple as that. So pull the names.
if we have enough,
That's what we have to say.
if we
Yeah.
have enough,
We might not even have more, we might not
I mean,
have enough, so.
it's tough to get members to committees as it is. So we might not have enough. And if we don't have enough, we go with what we get.
Yeah,
You just have to appreciate that people are stepping up to do it.
If you can let Justin Trudeau's pay, would you sign up for that? You know you
So,
would.
yes.
Yeah, this might be the best public engagement session we ever created. You guys are smart.
Hey, it's the
Okay.
precedence municipal
Right,
level.
there you go.
Grassroots.
So I like,
No, I have a
you must be
question.
hanging,
I have a
at least hit it.
question. If I do.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So once this committee's formed.
Yeah.
At what point or how long do you think ETA on this information?
Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it does
It
matter to
does
me.
matter to her.
I would suggest it's not a long process. I've seen it done before, 4 to 6 weeks probably.
All right, so what is council's intention to include this in the budget or wait until the next organizational meeting in the fall? I'd be good with leaving it till the organizational meeting in the fall to be included in the 2024 budget. That's why.
That's a good idea.
Okay, I kind of want to see it. This one, Cindy.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the whole idea of scheduling it because normally this committee, I want it in the terms of reference that it's supposed to be established prior to the municipal election. And I think that that wording should be in there that, you know, it should be formed, you know, and reporting like the September before the October election and that it would take effect the January 1 with the new council, something like that. I think that should be in wording. And then I think we should put it that that's the only time it's done unless there's a 2/3 vote of council or something like that. Because I don't like the idea of setting my own salary. I don't like doing this. I would be happy to wait until the next election and do it before then, but I know you guys all feel differently. But I think it needs to be in there when this is supposed to be done, and maybe a phrase in there about if it's done outside of the normal election cycle, there needs to be like a 2/3 vote of council or something. Because I don't think we should open up that council can just keep doing this forever after whenever they feel like it. I think it needs to be a regular with election, and that's the only time it's ever done. That's my piece.
Yeah, no, that's good. Just to clarify, you're not setting your own wage under this process because you're handing it off to a committee to come back and tell you what the recommendation is. You're not recommending anything. You're just agreeing or disagreeing with their recommendation. So
Right.
it would have been ideal if we could have had this done pre-amalgamation. I 100% agree with the public there that this should have been done. But we all know that we were fighting internally to get certain bylaws passed, and this was not one of those that was going to go over lightly. So I think this is the most transparent and efficient way to do this. And we should definitely set the parameters as you suggested. So that there's a timeline before every election. So before we finish our term, we would revisit this and take into consideration everything that we've done in the last 2.5 years for the new council coming 2025. So thank you for that, Hazel, and then Gordon.
Just, on clarification, would you be looking at doing an ad hoc committee again in 2025? To review the.
Yeah, if we pass this, that would be the idea.
So.
Yeah.
So we can have 2 public participations in our 3-year term.
Well, the committee, but.
Yeah.
Just to follow up on Hazel, if I could, Jonathan, before I go to you. That being said, if that were the case, then that same committee would have to have some element of engagement with council to see if the decision that they previously had set made sense. Did it flow? Was it good? Was it not? So there needs to be something in there about the internal mechanism of interviewing council to make sure that what they previously had decided either was dealt with or not. I don't know, maybe that's too far down the rabbit hole at this point. I shouldn't probably go there.
Well, I will say that item 7 suggests, if I might, Mr. Mayor, the committee may conduct any research if deemed necessary, including input from council members.
There you go. It's already comes. Okay, Gordon.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with us having already seen an interim operating budget out of Timber Valley with a $65,000 savings, looking at the fact that we reduced our council and legislative services piece. So I would like, in support of Councillor Hoiber and Councillor Thompson, that this, any amount that is proposed be put forward in the 2024 budget.
So you would see an increase in 20.
Budget is realized.
Go ahead, Hoiber.
This process could be 4 to 6 weeks, or this committee could say we want to really stretch it out 6 months and.
That's true. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm hearing that everyone is on board with the lottery. I'm hearing that everybody's on board with what's presented. I'm hearing that there should be a definitive re-engagement in this committee prior to every election. So wherever that wants to be entered. And I'm hearing that there should be no rush put on this. And that we would not, as a council, see this until January 2024. For it to go forward. Is that about right?
Any change at all?
That's right. Any change until January. Okay.
And give us this year anyhow to determine whatever.
Yeah, and it doesn't interfere with this year's budget, which is already well underway. Okay, is there anything that we need to change in here to represent what I just?
I'll have to bring this back.
So we can give it first reading and then.
Okay,
That's it.
let's do that.
Good.
Perfect. Okay, is that comfortable? You've made some notations.
Okay, I'll give first reading.
All right.
Okay. Council gives first reading to bylaw 2023-15 to amend council committee bylaws as presented.
Excellent. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, excellent. And we will see that back next meeting for a second reading with the amendments note. All right, thank you. Okay, that was good, guys.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Just gonna throw it out there because we have a cow set up on March 7th. Would it be worth just giving our another look see then? Is there enough time on March 7th or no?
Try and get your procedure bylaw done.
No, that's all right. That's why I asked. You know,
It won't matter because we can't make motions.
right. That's fair enough. Sorry.
Don't get that from there.
Don't get panicked.
Oh, what?
This isn't a panic.
Town meeting?
We have a cow.
If possible, well, there's only a minor amendment to 112, that's what I've heard so far.
This bylaw is not the problem.
No,
Okay.
This bylaw is not a panic.
The other one's a
No.
little big.
That was an easy two way. Go ahead, Councillor Holiday.
Yeah, can we just verify what amendments, like we wanted the lottery and then something about the timing prior to an election, like some wording on there. Is that right? Is that what she has for amendments?
Yep. And we have that we wouldn't see any realization until January of 2024.
All right, yeah, I think there should be a mechanism if you're doing it outside of the normal election cycle that it, some sort of procedure that council would have to vote or something to have it outside of the normal.
Here and let her answer that one.
Okay.
This committee shall be called up in the year of the general election unless a 2/3 vote of council initiates the process in another year.
Autumn.
That work?
Well,
Yeah. And this first reading as well, Cindy, so we can revamp and check it all out on that second.
That's perfect. I just wanted to make sure that that was in it. Thanks.
Yeah, all right, perfect. Okay, that was good, guys. Moving on. Action items, financial plan guidelines and assumptions for the operating and capital budget. I'll just give you a motion to pass that in.
Yeah.
No, I just didn't.
Yeah. Essentially.
Okay. Do you want to come up front here probably? Yeah, okay, get comfy. Did you want me to get you some water? You got some, okay. All right. I'm settling in for a long haul here.
I'll be inviting my colleague for the component of our financial evening
All right.
activities.
And is this our guide that we're gonna be using for this particular journey? Not that one?
That is the
In your agenda?
Yeah, that's this guy. They had this nice package, one with a nice picture.
That was the budget that we passed in December.
Right, that's it.
So good evening, Mayor and Council.
Yep.
So as part of the process that we've developed and has been effective, we like to bring forward, administration likes to bring forward bit of a starting point to the budget season. So included in this document this evening that we're going to talk about is just some parameters that we use, the senior management team will use for development of our budgets. Some key indicators that and as we'll go through the document, there's various sources that we've looked at to give us some validation that the information that we're presenting is accurate, it makes sense, it's transparent for not only council as they make the decision on the budget, but for our residents so that they know where we're getting our information from and that makes sense.
There's many moving components as we go through this document, you'll see that form up and how we get to that final determination of what our budget looks like. So I'll take you through kind of briefly some of the highlights that are included in this document. And, you know, as we go through, there's really 3 key documents that we'll present over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks. There's going to be an operating component to that, which is going to involve the current year 2023, and then we're going to do projections 24, 25, and 26. And we'll present those to council. As well, we will also present our capital component, which is a 5-year budget, and we would like to begin the discussions and development of a 10-year capital infrastructure plan. So those are the 3 pieces that are largely going to make up our budget discussions over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks. So timing, this is a tight timeline. So given the circumstances with amalgamation and the fact that we both communities passed interim budgets, we're hoping that there's a possibility that we can blend a lot of the information together and come up with a reasonable budget that we can all be satisfied with and residents will be comfortable with. So today we're starting off with the guidelines, and then we will start to bring forward information, operating budgets over the course of March 15th, April 5th and 19th, and then with the expectation that we're going to approve a final budget on May the 3rd. Keeping in mind that if we do get a little bit hung up along the way, there might be the necessity to have a special meeting in order to continue to move the process forward. As we are all aware, we have a legislative requirement to complete the budget, and what the MGA tells us through the process we must follow. So this isn't something that administration makes up and we just go along and we develop these plans. We have some strict guidelines that the MGA mandates that the Diamond Valley will have to follow. So we are under legislative requirements. And so what are our requirements? So really the role requirements are kind of clearly outlined here as far as what's council's role and what administration's role. Certainly from a council perspective, your primary focus is really on governance, policy setting, determining the strategic priorities and making sure that those are cascaded down to administration so that we have the capability to make, incorporate those decisions and those recommendations into the budgets. So going through, we have a bit of a cycle that's included on page number 6 that really tells about how that process works. So it really starts with those strategic priorities, and we're hoping in the next few weeks or a few days that we can get that information from council and we can utilize that and begin to incorporate it into our planning process.
So I have a point of order, if I may. Just a resident has said they're not able to use the Teams link to get into the meeting. Several people are trying because they wanted to hear this section. So
Okay.
Verna, do you know?
I'll hit the pause button.
Yeah, I looked at our Teams link here and it's showing that the meeting has ended.
Showing February.
Oh, it is. I think it says March 1st, but then it says February 24th. That's why, Gary. So no, just a couple of residents have reached out to me. And so that might be why. So I don't know if we can get that fixed real quick. Or is that?
Quick look. Well, we take 4 minutes.
Yeah, because some residents have said they want to go on here. So
My eyes are just watering here.
sorry for interrupting.
We're gonna take 4 minutes. How are we looking, Brent?
It's shared, so they'll join when they can.
All right. We're shared.
Yeah. Start again.
We're gonna go for it. Okay, yeah, that. Page there, yeah.
Go back to there.
All right, we're gonna reconvene. Thank you, everybody. Okay, let's continue, page 7.
Okay, so can you continue on, Mayor and Council? So we have a bit of a process flow how we go from really the inception of the budget process all the way up to the completion of it. So we start off, of course, with strategic priorities, which, you know, we as administration will look at. We're responsible for ensuring that that can be appropriately executed. And then we really are the gatekeepers of that, the financial resources to ensure that they're used effectively and that they meet the needs of the town and we can really execute on the strategic priorities. So we will develop a couple of different financial reports. We do one by business unit, which really is a collaborative effort. It involves all of our senior management team. And then we will develop one that's really on categories and different functions. And through that process, we implement it, and then we will begin that process of reporting it. So we will ensure that council is up to date on any variances that exist in that planning and the budget process. So I'm not going to spend much time on the strategic priorities because we are awaiting those. A couple of different components, though, is we usually they'll reflect community values, their well-planned development and smart growth, the desire for improved communication and transparency and maintenance of the urban and rural setting and character, the attraction of innovative investment, a showcase of our oil and gas and ranching history, and really, they really are about making our community welcoming and encouraging residents to come and live here. So first part of this is really about some of the general budget assumptions. So our management team will take away and they'll begin to develop their department budget plans. They'll look at anything really greater than 2% for wages, over and above that, anything that's negotiated. All expenses greater than 5,000 or 10% other than wages. Any personnel changes, keeping in mind that we're still in the process of our final organizational structures and where everyone will reside. And any additions and deletions in FTE, so full-time equivalents, must be fully supported. As well, we do a real thorough review of any major operating expenditures. We call those MOEs, and they need to be justified. And these would be anything incremental outside of the normal business process, any significant repairs and maintenance that is done on buildings, equipment, anything like that has to come forward with a justification. Some other key assumptions that we really will look at is property taxes. They form a significant component of our budget. As it stands right now, we are projecting between 7 and 10% increase in assessment values. We'll also look at some of our rental rates. So we'll look at the pool, we'll look at the hall rentals, we will look at the arena. The expectation that we're going to look at our utility rates sometime in 2023 will form a part of our budget. And then we'll also look at anywhere where we could potentially see some cost containment. Whether there's a reduction, status quo, ongoing, or service level reviews and discussions. So those will all take place in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then we also have to consider, which is a huge component of our budget, is third parties. So these are our joint billings with the Sheep River Library, Marigold, with the cemetery, Schrock, West End, Town of Okotoks, Fort Hills County, and of course the other one that's quite significant, which will be the RCMP. The big thing that we really have to talk about this year and going forward is inflation. Up until this year, it hasn't really been a factor, but we've seen an annual inflation rate in 2022 of 6.5%. Now we are expecting that the 2024 inflation rate could stabilize around 4%, but we're suspecting that the inflation rate is still going to stay fairly high into 2023. So as stated, our salaries, wages, and benefits, they'll need to have some sort of business case justification for any increases as well. we have to consider any changes in legislation with respect to CPT, which has been a significant increase in the last few years and will continue to be substantial into 2024 and 2025. As well, we've seen some adjustments in our EI premiums. Keep in mind that we pay for a portion and the employee is responsible for the portion. So those rates are also going up and we don't have a lot of control over those, so we factor them into our budget. The debt rates coming into 2023, if we want to do any capital projects, we need to think about if we want to finance them through a debenture, because there is an operating component to that cost. So these are the rates that we're seeing in 2023. So keep in mind that previously in the last 2 years, we were at about 2.6, 2.75 long-term. So these rates, I think, with respect to anything we wanted debt finance, we might want to think about alternative methods in order to, if we're going to do any infrastructure projects. So fuel, fuel makes up a considerable cost, especially when it comes to our roads, our public works, our arena, and any outdoor activities that we're performing on behalf of the town. We are looking at gasoline prices. I would say they're somewhere around the 130 to 140 range. Keep in mind that we are going to have a carbon tax increase effective April 1st. So that is going to increase our fuel costs. And right now we are in a little bit of a honeymoon period because the Alberta government has reduced their fuel tax. And so we're currently not paying 14 cents on gasoline and 11 cents on diesel. And that's only until June. So whether that stays in place, we are, I would expect we are looking at about $1.40 for gasoline unleaded, and diesel right now we are about $1.65. And that is only projected to go up in the coming years with certainly with carbon tax. And I'm suspecting at some point in time that if prices on fuel start to stabilize, that maybe the government will start to take that tax off. I'm not sure, but I think we need to be prudent and expect that we will only be able to have that for half a year.
Prepare for the worst.
Yeah, so utility rates. Both towns have done a really good job at managing their utility rates. For our electricity, we both have hedges in place. And the Black Diamond hedge is set to come off at the end of December 2023, and they are sitting at a commodity price of $49.62. So keep in mind the average commodity price for electricity last year was $122. So both towns have hedges. Turner Valley has a hedge on 2,500 kilowatt hours, and that's set to expire at the end of 2024. So our commodity price is a little bit higher than Black Diamond, their hedge, but our intention is we're working now with our energy provider to go out to market likely sometime in April to see what we can secure for a hedge going forward, and that's about going to be about 48,000 kilowatt hours between the two communities. And what we'll do is we'll get on to the assets that are sitting on the west side of the river. They will go on effective January 1, 2025. And the ones on the east side of the river will start a new energy program as of January 1, 2024. So yeah, the energy costs, we do have some control over electricity. Delivery costs, we are seeing those skyrocketing, and in discussion with our energy provider today, those are only going to increase. The expectation is that by 2030, the increase will be over 23% from today's rates. So we're going to see that makes up now 50 to 60% of the billing. So yeah, it's significant. Well, there's some numbers here. I'm not gonna go through them, but just for your reading, it just lets you know what we're currently using as far as kilowatt hours and what we're expecting in the coming months. So for natural gas, I do have to make a correction on the carbon tax because apparently effective April 1, 2023, the carbon tax amount is actually less than what I have in my document. The interesting thing is they don't post it in GJs. It's a different calculation. It's in cubic meters. So I guess the math is wrong. So the carbon tax as of April 1st is going to be $3.29, not $4.41. Having said that, we are still forecasting a price for a GJ up around $6 to $7. And we're not seeing that decline. We're also working with our energy provider to do another hedge for our natural gas. So that is kind of our energy, which is a big part of our budget. Some of it, we do whatever we can to mitigate, keep the actual amount that we pay for the commodity within reason. But it's really challenging on the transmission and distribution side.
It's actually a
Yes.
silly question right now.
Yes.
Just because we just have Foothills Energy Co-op. Did they even come close to matching the prices that we get? Fortis and Core and. The other one,
So
you know what I mean?
to address your question, Mayor Crane, what happens is we take we'll take it out to tender.
Yeah.
So we'll take out to tender that we need to purchase this much kilowatt hours and this much GJs.
Right,
And what happens is we'll get parties that will bid on it.
okay,
Generally, it's not Bushwell's Co-op.
Yeah.
It's the big providers because they're able to offer a bit of a competitive rate. And the overall, the large providers, they're pretty close to each other. I would suspect based on probably the volumes that Foothills Gas Co-op does, they probably can't compete at the same level that the large, just because they're buying so much volume. So if they come in and they do want to provide us a quote, they'll do it through the energy provider.
Okay.
And then what the energy provider does is they go through and see which one is the most competitive.
all right, good to have the answer.
So on the population side, so going through the population right now, Diamond Valley is sitting at a population of 5,341. The previous population numbers here were for Turner Valley. As you go through to page number 18, you can see where we rank both communities. They haven't put them together yet, but you can see the growth from 2016, which was the last census. The town of Black Diamond independently had a population change of 7.1%. And their enumerated population increased 0.9%. So overall, we didn't see, as we've seen in previous years, a significant growth in the community, in both communities over from 2016 to 2021. And then on the Turner Valley side, the enumerated population increased 2%. The private dwellings increased 5.3%, and then it gives you some land area. So that's kind of where the 2021 census landed. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the subdivision component of things. I did get our planning manager to update the information as of February 2023. There are 26 vacant single detached residential lots ready for home construction. 8 in the former town of Black Diamond and 18 in the former town of Turner Valley. So what this gives us, it gives us a bit of visibility on potential increases in residential taxes. So we will factor some of that, if we can, into the upcoming budget. And we move on to our operating budgets for borrowing. So this just tells you a little bit about our debenture program. So everything comes through ACFA. And if you wanted to go there and take a look, there's a link there which tells you how the loan is calculated. So anytime we do a big project, if we determine we wanted to do a debenture, we can do that calculation up front. It's quite straightforward. It gives you the different timelines and the interest rates that are available through ACFA. So that's their calculation. And then as far as other allocations, so we do other allocations for things like telephone, IT, RCMP, the municipal police funding. So likely that will be what we'll be doing in 2023, and then 2024 will be the RCMP model, I'm assuming.
People to put out there.
Yeah.
You can push that one.
Try to push it as much as you
Yeah.
can.
That's right, yeah.
As well, we do allocations for insurance, and so those are some of our allocations. We use best practices as far as how we do those allocations, and we make sure it's fair and equitable across all of the business units. So as far as municipal operations and engineering, some of the major operating expenditures that we look at is our maintenance program, preventative maintenance, predictive maintenance, corrective maintenance, operational maintenance, ground maintenance, betterment costs. So we'll do some work on our paving and asphalt. And then we have some contracted services, which involve a variety of third-party services that are billed to the town.
Excuse me.
So things like, and Craig, you can step in certainly if you want to be public works manager. Things and facilities, things like if we have to do line flushes, if we have to do any sewer work, water work where we have a water main break, or other things we do throughout the year is we do maintenance programs for a variety of our equipment. And Craig can also provide the information on that equipment, usually in the off season.
HVAC systems, yeah.
There's your HVAC for library.
So when we'll do work in the facilities as well. So whether we need to do, we've done repairs to furnaces, air conditioning. And so those sorts of programs we have in place just to prevent big repairs.
That's also too much going through.
Yeah, I mean, they would
Or is
be.
it more?
They're more on the IT side. I would not put them under, they're not strictly under our contract. They are under our contracted services, but they are on a separate line.
So these contractors are more.
Yes. Yeah, and things like street cleaning and, you know, for things that we don't have either the resources or the capabilities in-house to do it, then we'll contract it out to a third party that has the capability of doing it more efficiently, and they have the equipment.
Thank you very much.
You have a street sweeper there? Like in Black Diamonds, or would you call it more of like a man with broom with an engine running behind it?
Yes, we have, the former town of Black Diamond has a street sweeping unit, but it tends to be serviced and repaired more frequently than it's actually sweeping.
Okay, good to know.
Would that be a piece of equipment that you would take to solve option on?
Absolutely, there's still a lot of work to be done, and the equipment assessment and evaluations to come.
I know I'm a little bit early on this one. So we have the town of Black Diamond town car and town of Turner Valley town patrol truck. Are either of these vehicles can be used by the departments you foresee? Or are they going to?
Yes, Councillor Martin, through the chair. That's something that we're still assessing and talking about. Again, it's sort of mid to low priority at the moment. But yeah, it's something that we'll consider. as will any of as our fleet and equipment, because in some cases there's equipment that emergency situations, but it's duplicated. It may not necessarily be needed in the future. And then there's the equipment and vehicle with some of the change in departments and the developments, potential development of departments, reassignment or reallocation of some of those vehicles will be determined. It's just for now.
It takes.
Okay. If you want to follow up, pretty good.
Just if I may, thank you,
Go ahead.
Greg, just to expand on that, we are looking at service level reviews as well, and dependent on the results of those and some information from council that will adjust it. So if one department doesn't require a particular vehicle,
It will be used somewhere else.
But again, at this point, I don't feel that we have a surplus, I do feel that there's a need and that we can fill that need within interdepartmental.
Okay.
Well, it makes sense.
Back to you, Corinne.
Okay. So to continue on through the chair. So a couple of documents that are going to form significant pieces of our financial reporting. So our financial reporting and what you'll see on a quarterly basis is going to look like this. So this breaks it down by category, and it'll have the operating budget. It will have the actuals, a variance, and then subsequently a variance report to back it up, which is a written document which provides all of the information on any of our financial variances through that quarter. So that will be part of the template that we'll utilize. And then the other report, and I know it's super small, is a breakdown by business unit. So what it looks at is it looks at the revenue, it looks at the expenditures, and it has a net amount. And I will have when I print it off, I have it in 11 by 17. So I can appreciate for those who look at it and it's quite small. But so what we do is we do that based on budget, actuals, and we have a variance. So we have discussions on a quarterly basis, and this is the information from the budget will feed into these two primary documents. Okay, so any questions on the operating side? Is there anything that council would like to see differently or added to the document as we move forward to the capital piece?
Council, I know Turner Valley guys, you guys have seen these, Heather, you've seen this before as well, so probably newer to see this format for Brendan and Veronica. Is that making sense? Yeah. Nice and clean. Yeah. It really does work well the previous, oh, sorry, Veronica. Oh, Cindy, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, everything's great. I'm just wondering about, we always compare budget to budgets over the years, and we have talked a little bit about the importance of showing the actuals. I'm just wondering if we could talk about that a little bit. Otherwise, happy with everything.
And to address your question, Councillor Holiday through the chair, we can absolutely add to this. If we determine that we want to see some actuals from a prior year, we can certainly insert that in. That's not a problem. So we can add 2 years in, we can add however you would like to see it. Just provide some feedback and we can incorporate that. All of the information comes right from Uniware, so it's very easy for us to incorporate it into the documents.
Following on that line, I'll just say right now, we'd love to see actuals for the 2021 and the 2022 flow through. That way, new council can look at the previous expenditures and how it panned out, give us a good projection on what we might be looking at moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think we're going to have a lot of people looking at us and our financials in regards to amalgamation and how things were prior, and then things moving forward. and I know they can use the financial statements, but I know there's differences in how the financial statements were portrayed based on auditors and how Shrek was included. And it would be nice if we could provide, you know, something that is apples to apples comparison. But I know I don't want to put extra work on you, because I know this is already a huge process. But, you know, when we're merging Turner Valley and Black Diamond numbers to make, I don't know, to make it more readable and comparable, that's all I'm looking for. And then, yeah, it doesn't have to be on the same page, because I know these ones get really long, you know, wide. But even just an own separate page with actuals for a few years would be great. Just, I'll leave it up to you, but that's what I'm interested in.
Anything else operations wise that you want to identify?
Very happy with it.
Yeah, it's great. It really is. Go on to capital.
Okay, I think capital, if I may, from an administration perspective, might be a little bit of a beast this year. So, but I think, from our perspective, I think we're committed to begin the process of trying to develop a combined infrastructure plan that will work for the communities as they come together. So we will, of course, by our MGA requirements, we have to do a 5-year. So we will absolutely prepare that. And then we will certainly engage the senior management team on what a longer term plan is going to look like. And how, what that will do is it'll give us visibility on how we're going to potentially fund it. So Craig, I know, Public Works Manager has many ideas as we move down that process. He's been assessing and driving around and looking at the assets in both communities and how we can serve the community better. So.
And then.
So yeah, the capital, that longer term version of our former selves and our new selves is really going to be something that we're going to work towards as we get to the end of April. So with the capital process, there's in this particular document, there's a lot of definitions as to what a capital budget is, what it should be, and really it must include estimated amounts for what is needed to acquire, construct, remove, or improve capital property. It has to include the anticipated sources and amounts of money to pay the costs referred to in Part A, and how the amount is going to be transferred from the operating budget. So when I say that, there's probably a amortization component that needs to be reflected in the budget, despite the fact that it's a non-cash item. So we have some definitions, which I'm not going to go through, really talks about the TCA, the cost, fair value, net book value, and useful life. These are all items that we live and breathe. It's consistent with the standards, and we reference it's under PS 3150, which is on under tangible capital assets under the CPA Canada standards and guidance. So we will utilize that as we develop our capital. We do a bit of a test as to what is a capital item, and we ensure that it follows those guidelines. So as discussed, we talk about what the requirements are to prepare the budget. It's 5-year, but we're doing much longer term. We're talking a bit about inflation. We are expecting that inflation could be around 4% this year and next year. So certainly if we have existing infrastructure projects that have appeared on a prior year, we're going to have to look at them and determine whether there's going to be an increase in cost. So we'll be looking at that in the next couple of weeks for those projects that currently sit on our individual infrastructure budgets. As we move them together, there will likely be an increase in cost. And then we talk a bit about our thresholds. So right now, as it stands, anything over 5,000 for land improvements, buildings is 25, engineering structures 25, machinery and vehicles. So this is really consistent with the guidance that's set out in PS 3150. Major asset classifications, I don't need to go through that because I think that's, that will just be useful reading for, council. What I really want to begin to focus on is a ranking requirement. So in previous years, we've used a ranking document that was developed, and it's been incredibly useful for determining whether a project is really a go or no go. So what's required is it has to meet some stipulations. And we'll go through from a senior management perspective and with Sean as our CAO and go through the process of determining whether a project should really be proceed or not. And what that does allow us to do is it allows us to really perhaps eliminate or postpone projects that really don't meet that ranking criteria. Because as we realize as senior management, we all have projects that we would like to move forward, but with limited financial capabilities, we do have to prioritize them. So we'll go through a ranking process, which will be brought forward to council for review. And it talks about, it has some criteria, it has a description of the project, justification, potential alternatives and options, what will it do to our operations? And we really have 3 criteria, which is whether it's non-discretionary, so we have to do it, it's critical, and it could be for regulatory or compliance purposes. It could be essential to support critical operations. And we have a discretionary criteria, which could be council strategic priorities. So it's something that council maybe has approved or is supporting, or it's a service that should, and we want it, and they would like to move it forward. It could have regulatory impacts. It could have fiscal management. So we could have an external funding source, which allows us to do the project, or it could be an asset that's at the end of its life. And then we have a make sense criteria. So it's an administration recommendation. It has a supporting business case. It has a positive return on investment. It might be a regional collaboration with another part of the community, or it could be necessary upgrades. So all of these things are considered when we move capital projects forward. And then there's just a discussion about some of our abilities to fund. So there's some internal and external sources of funding that are available to the town, and they're just listed here below. So I won't go into them in detail. And then you can see the appendix really is our PCA and our MOE form that we utilize. This has been super effective in each of the columns. There's drop down. We just do drop down, and then there's a mechanism for justification. You could put in some cost implications on the operating budget. And then we have our ranking document here. So this document has a criteria of 9 items that we consider, and we rank them and weigh them, and we have a final score. So these are some of the processes that we are going to be going through in the next few weeks, and certainly in the next 6 to 8 weeks as we move through the budget process. So it's transparent. I think it's easy to understand, and it really gives both residents and council an idea of how we arrive at our determination of how our budgets are actually compressed. Questions?
Just on that level, just to point this one up for Black Diamond, previous council, Sunset Boulevard would be a good example. A project that went vetted through these criteria, critical and so on, then it hit all the components on the right hand or left hand side. So it was a strategic priority. It was infrastructural renewal, right? So it hit all those boxes and ranked high. The funding models then also have to usually align, like how we fund it. So we had the grants available. So it quickly went to the top list. So that was a clear indicator. Let's get this project going, hit it while we can. So that this is exactly what administration will go through and pick everything that they know, bring back sheets all ranked, say here's what you're looking at. And then we can kind of say, oh, okay, which ones do we really want to fund here? Which ones don't we? Or which ones can we put into a placement on 10-year window? So it's a really good system. So I just want to say that. I'll open it for now. Comments? because that's the end of that one. Hazel.
Do you sometimes, when you're ranking your projects, look at what sort of funding is available?
So to address your question through the chair, Councillor Martin, absolutely, because when we have large projects, we have to make sure that we have ample funding that we can actually do the project financially feasible. So yeah, that is absolutely a consideration. And we do know, for example, the Sunset, we had to wait a few years to actually get that project completed simply because of the cost. So, and you know, part of the ranking principle allows us to really establish, you know, what are the top 5 projects, because we do recognize, administration does recognize, as does council, that we don't have an endless supply of either grant money or reserves. And so we have to look at what is at the time, what makes most sense for the community. So,
And with yesterday's announcement of the budget, so see the municipality getting.
so to address your question, that's a good question.
A good question.
If they haven't said anything.
No, I wish we knew the answer to that. We'd be way ahead of the rest of Alberta probably, but we're waiting for the local government funding formula to come out and see the parameters that they evoke in that, and that'll let us know. There's still Alberta Communities and RMA are still providing input on that as well, but the expectation right now is that we're going to see a decreased funding model from what we saw in MSI in 2020, 2021. But we'll wait and see, and we hope that's not the case. We do know that funding has been set until 2023. See what the future brings, but hopefully budget projections continue to be positive and that they throw some money back to municipalities.
Because we really don't know about what the funding model is going to look for the local government fiscal framework.
Well, so to address your question, what we have seen, it's extremely complicated and there is a whole bunch of parameters around it. So I understand their requirement for the transparency with the communities, but at the same time, I mean, education got a big, huge amount of money in the budget. So, but I have not heard anything about the municipalities.
And we won't even know about the police grant, the provincial police grant in the 2024.
Okay, yes.
And none of those costs are ever negotiable. Is that correct?
Well, they are. It depends on the service levels that the community desires, et cetera, and support staff required to facilitate those desires. So yeah, it's certainly relevant.
Thank you very much.
Quite often after the budget is laid down by the provincial government, Alberta municipalities will do a deep dive into it and they report back to us. So we likely will see that come out in the next week and a half. So I think we kind of gotta hopefully wait on that unless somebody else gets some inside information. But they do a really good deep dive into it usually and send that report out to all municipalities. So I don't know if you've ever seen that report as a council, but yeah, so.
And the Holiday will give us the inside scoop, Holiday?
One of the challenges this time around, it's not just the amount of money they're allocating to municipalities. It's how they're going to allocate.
Yeah.
So the devil's in the detail. There's a kilometers of road, there's a kilometers of piping infrastructure.
Yeah.
What are those rules and regulations going to look like? Because that will dictate our funding.
Okay, excellent. Deputy Mayor.
Give you a motion for.
Absolutely.
Okay. The council direct administration to utilize the 2023 financial plan, guidelines and assumptions in brackets operational capital as presented, and a smashing small number.
Just for the actuals.
Oh, right.
They made note of that. Right.
And wonderful presentation. Yeah, thank you. Clear as day. It's fantastic.
Perfect. And Hazel has some comment, Heather has some comment, nothing up. Making any movement. Veronica, Jonathan. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. All right, thank you for that. Well done. We're gonna move right into the,
It's going to be knee-deep in their with so.
yeah, Q4 report.
Okay.
I like this one.
So we like to provide a quarterly update on where we are from a financial perspective. This one, because it's going to be our last of 2022, involves the entire year. And so it always has a little bit of, you know, how close are we and did we get to where we needed to be? And I'm happy to say and this is where independently we have to present. So I'm happy to say from the perspective of the town of Turner Valley, we're sitting right now with a surplus of about 176,000. Struck, the consolidation of Struck is not in these numbers yet. So that's one variable we have to consider. And this is net of amortization. So the amortization being a non-cash item is not presented as well. So from a high level perspective, our total revenues were up about 534,000. And keeping in mind, if you look at the variance report, primarily that is the reserve amount that was transferred for the amalgamation, which is the 363,000. So that made up the majority of that number. On the expense side, our expenses were also up, and they were up 300, just under 307,000. And that is, there's a couple of things in there. There is some West End costs, and we did not budget for the Struck capital expenditures. And so I'm not quite sure why we did not, but we did not. But those are two of the bigger items. I can go through the report variance, but there's 15 pages of it, and so I would rather not. I'd rather just take questions, and then we can address them as we go. The other document I have included is by business unit. And so that gives you a bit of a perspective on the various levels. There is one item that's not in there for the recycle depot. They had overcharged us, so we're going to get a $7,000 credit back on the recycle side. And so that's not reflected in here. But overall, I am extremely happy with where we landed financially. It was a really tough year. Costs were, inflation was very high. And so from a cost containment perspective, I thought our management team did excellent on trying to just keep costs down. Keeping in mind that we still had, you know, we have to service the town. So when we have a day break or something like that happens, we don't have any options but to make sure that we repair those. So, and then the capital piece just looks at some of the capital costs that we had. The capital program for the town of Turner Valley was very, very small. I think with respect to that, we did Sunset last year, which was a very large project. We have two projects that we carried forward into 2023, and that's the swimming pool with the intake project. And the other large project is the Conclusion Valley Culvert. So both of those projects, certainly the culvert project is ongoing now, and the river crossing project. So those were projects that we've carried into 2023. So, but our capital program was quite insignificant and very small. So that is the report on the Diamond Valley, or Turner Valley side. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say that we did purposely create a small capital project going through occupation, and we took only our high priorities, that being pool. Seclusion, and I just would like to ask, Greg, if I could, how seclusion is moving? Because they should be doing pretty good.
Yes, the project is just wrapping up, and they'll be back in the spring, of course, to do the summer landscape tidy up. But yeah, we're just wrapping up. No significant issues. There was one change order that they just requested for an extension of time just because of some challenges
I monitored a few days. I was headed over there, saw him down Weldon, pushing pipe through, and it looked pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, they had one little hiccup with trying to push that pipe through, which was one of those delays. They had to actually get in there and jack the culvert up so they could.
Interesting. Jonathan?
And really quick question for Craig here. I see a lot of supply chain management issues. Do we foresee that coming into 2023? Yeah, still ongoing.
Through the chair, Councillor Gordon. You know, it seems to be hit and miss. It seems to be improving in a lot of areas. There are still some challenges with supply chain in certain components for electronics, per se, for equipment. But all in all, I think we're
Burton?
Craig, you just kind of spoke briefly about the river crossing. Has that project all come together, like the crossing and everything? Can you remember doing that?
Yeah, Councillor Martin through the chair, we're just working on that right now. So council had approved the work towards the environmental assessment for the river crossing so that we could identify what kind of ground material we have to push through to extend that pipe across the river. And that will be required so that we can submit a permits to Department of Fisheries and Health and Environment. And then they will, but yes, once the environmental work's done, they can do the scope of work and sort of price it up that process. So I don't have that number.
Are you hoping that you'll be able to start it this spring before the trout run or?
So obviously we would love to start that this spring, but again, that assessment kind of determines what the impact is to the river. And therefore we'll identify when our window of opportunity.
And it's just a group on this.
It is, it'll be like I think it's only like a 4-week or 3-week window in August.
Yes, it's in August.
So best guess is we've got bedrock and we can bore through bedrock. Worst case, it's shale and gravelly. If we don't have to impact the river bed directly, then we can probably start as soon as the permits are in place. But otherwise, we would have to wait to happen.
This will be one of our top priority projects.
Yes, and then once we do get the zoo line in, we're going to impact the river bed. And because we will have to go.
Just for Black Diamond Council, that's referring to a water line from.
So from Hawkins across to Bailey Ridge
and up the hill. So the 2013 flood removed a massive amount, 150 pairs of bank, and actually went down deep enough to expose the old line, which actually is encased, which is good. So now we have to readjust. So we've got some pictures of an old file that we can update on that one, so you can claim all the top. But you'll probably bring that during budget anyway.
Yep.
Right. So. Okay, good. Any other things for Turner Valley? Favorable, unfavorable. Cindy?
Yeah, just couple things with interest rates going up like crazy. I know things have been crazy with amalgamation, but are we looking at both Turner Valley Black Diamonds, making sure the money is invested? Has that been relooked at since amalgamation, or like how often do you guys reassess? Where
To address your question, Councillor Holiday through the chair, I have had some money that has been coming due, and I've been in small tranches, like 250, 300,000. So I've been putting them in 270 day, but I've been getting 4.5 interest. So I'm rolling over, and I think what our intention, probably Shirley and I will sit down and start to determine how our plan forward. I kind of have a step approach where I have money invested at different levels for different lengths of time. And so I'll take like 750,000 and I'll put it in for a year, but I'll always make sure that I have some money coming due in case we need it. So we'll probably just begin to incorporate some of that methodology and into an investment program.
And then one more question, since we have Craig there, I didn't realize. So I haven't given him any warning on this, but just looking at all the storm flushing and the water distribution flushing and all that, how do we have a plan set up? And is that something that we're looking for now, both towns, regular maintenance to make sure they're flushed regularly? I know I had on the campaign listening to residents complaining about, sediment in their water lines or whatever, and just wondering how that's usually handled.
Thanks, Councillor Holiday. Through the chair, great question. It's something we will be considering and addressing as we move forward. There's a considerable amount of work to be evaluated for our systems, and so first but not least would be the just sort of securing our water loss, and so looking to fund a capital project on that to investigate and try and identify the scope of water loss and try and find solutions to make those repairs. Secondly, would be to scope and inspect priorities first for sewer and storm, just to identify where we might have some challenges moving forward. But overall, I think through planning and operations, we have on our capital hit list to do some engineering work around investigation and condition assessments of our sewer, water, and storm systems, at which point we would be better situated to prioritize our problems. But right now, it's certainly kind of a project that we're working on, trying to resolve the immediate concerns. But moving forward, we'll plan something a little more permanent and solution based.
Thank you. Anything further, Cindy?
I'm just looking on my notes and I can't read them very well. I write too messy. I think that's it for now, though.
I think I might have here, page 102 on tax and utilities. Tax service.
Yeah, you're right.
I think, okay,
Yeah, we can get that one.
okay.
Okay, Turner Valley Side Good. We're gonna go to Shirley for Black Diamond.
So we, Shirley and I have been working together on a lot of things, including financial information and trying to come together and kind of collaborate on how we're going to present information. So of course, this is the last quarter of the year and year end for both of us. So what I did was I thought it might be interesting to develop the same documents as what we have and show the same information. And that way it kind of gives some clarity to both sides. So anyway, having said that, so we have, and I don't have a variance report per se, but we do have a variance report by category. And so I'm going to let, for the most part, we have vetted our numbers together. And so the operating budget, as we saw it, was 9.1 for revenues, and my expenses were 9.5. So I had a bit of a variance for the budget perspective. And so when I calculated the year-to-date we had revenues of 9.6. And keeping in mind when you see the reserve draws, it's the same situation as what the town of Turner Valley had, because both of us took 363,400 into revenue for the amalgamation. So a lot of the variance in
the town of Black Diamond certainly is that amount there. And then on the expenditure side, their actual year-to-date was also higher. And that as well could reflect some of that, and reflect the amalgamation costs that we've incurred. As far as any other information on the actual line-by-line items, I am going to pass it off to Shirley to answer questions, because I am not as familiar with the Black Diamond information. I've been working in all three databases. As we move along, I am now really focused on working on the Diamond Valley and finishing up the town of Trinity Valley. So, and as well, what we did do is we did do a document by business unit as well, which reflects variances. And as you can probably imagine, we have differences in the way we do calculate our financial information. So they do different way of managing their variances. We leave our variances as is, and we look at a holistic approach, whereas the approach done here is a little bit different. So I'm not going to comment either way. But as we come together, the approach forward is certainly going to be based on what the town of Turner Valley, how we developed our financial reporting package. I think it's transparent. And so we're going to move forward with that. Just, we're both okay with that.
Thanks.
Okay, one of the differences that we do have is that at the end of the year, basically zero. Because we have reserves that we from previous years. So if it's a surplus, it will go into the reserves. If it's a deficit, it will be brought out at the end of the year. So in total, between the surpluses and deficits, we came to 183, 673 that was transferred into reserves.
Sorry, where's that?
Sorry, that was just, it was what I was transferred at the end of the year. That came from the surpluses of the different budgets.
So we haven't, and Turner Valley hasn't moved all of their surplus yet. So we generally will wait after the audit is completed, and then we'll give our surplus. So other than we moved for amalgamation, we've moved those costs out and back into reserves. But for the most part, we have not. We will wait until our audit is completed to move our final reserves. So that is just the difference in methodology between the two communities.
For the amount transferred again was
183,673.
back into reserves. So
That is the
that was the surplus. The surplus.
The surpluses, yes.
We don't
But
have
year-end.
any documentation. That's the condition we're.
You won't see it in your documentation because they've already reconciled and balanced to zero. We have not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I read it as that. Okay. Kind of easier if you just throw questions using your council board.
Yeah, a couple of questions here. Your transfer to reserve plus the transfer to capital budget reserve. How much of that was actually spent when it says transfer to capital budget? Do you have an indication of how much was actually spent as opposed to how much is in that reserve balance?
I have opening and closing balances for the different reserves if you want copies of those.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Sure, oh, absolutely.
So the amount that you transferred is reflected in this.
Yes.
be an expenditure under public health.
That would be the cemetery and FCSS.
I did have one question. I don't see anyone else, so I'll just throw it out there.
What do you got?
The economic development seems like a lot of money. So,
We were expecting people to come back and they didn't.
okay, so that's
Which would also
follow through.
not have projects fund.
So just to get my head, if I may through the chair,
Yeah.
just to follow up to the question of capital reserves. It shows that there was a budgeted capital reserve transfer of 858, 364, an actual of 1.1 with a variance of 223. Yet when I look at the report you just handed us, total capital reserves, the opening balance was 7.2 million and the year end balance was 8.7, or pardon me, 6.7. So that's like a deficit of 500.
We had some major capital projects that we did, paving and sewer and water. And they came from, majority of those were paid from either the grant or there was a last minute vote to use the reserves to do paving.
So we should have a negative variance then?
Like we lost money on our reserves because we spent, there's also a fire truck that was bought. But that was put away for that particular project.
So if I may, through the chair, Councilor Gordon, I think what you're seeing is the transferring from the operating into capital reserves. And so that doesn't reflect, the reserve account would reflect not only what's spent in capital, but then the additions into the capital reserve from the operating statement. So there would likely be a plus and minus to that. So the net amount will not reflect just the transfer in from the operating.
I have a document, I don't have it here, I wasn't here to present, that shows all the ins and outs for everything that happened throughout the year. So if you want me to send that to you, I can.
I love information.
Good. Go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, I'm, like, there's a lot of, I think with Turner Valley Council that we're used to seeing things a certain way, and I think it's evident that although the format looks pretty and looks kind of like the same, but I think there's a lot of other things going on that are different. So trying to understand it and compare isn't very useful. Like taxes, I mean, I think there's other numbers in there that, you know, ours is strictly property tax revenue, which is 3 million, which is kind of what Black Diamond always is, but this is 4.2. So it's including other things that we don't normally categorize in there. You know, and these transfers to other departments, those line items that we don't normally see. So I suggest that when we actually go to the budget process and we're looking at actuals, if we could have at that time something that's a little more apples to apples comparison, that would be great. But I think we're wasting time tonight trying to, as Turner Valley Council, trying to understand it in the Turner Valley Council way.
Yeah, to address your question, Councilor Holiday, the chair. So the one thing, oh, sorry. The one after that, the tax component includes their requisitions. So we take our requisitions out because it's a number that isn't in and out. So we don't show it in our financial results, but so that just over $1 million, they show it in their revenue and then they show it in their expenses where we don't include it in. It's just because we show our tax number pure. So that would be the difference with the tax component.
All right. I will take motions first.
Nobody else wants to jump on?
Nope, you're good. Okay.
The council accept the 2022 Q4 financial report update year-to-date December 31st, 2022, unaudited, Turner Valley and Black Diamond as information.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Grant. Sure. Any further? Being none, all in favor? And carried. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. All right, moving on to leniency waiver requests. That's this one. We started on December 21st.
No.
Not
it's
as-
probably that.
Okay.
Do you guys want to speak to it, to all of this, or what?
Feel bad for this last one.
The manufacturers. They need to come back. Yes.
So it's coming back to paper. Is there an opportunity there we can now, that is some sort of support? Because it's pretty big chunk of change, right? And that makes the payment time, then get a recourse against the manufacturer in due course. That's kind of like, I don't know if that's allowable with our
Business insurance coverage. Yeah, well, why don't we open it up rather than just sidebar it here?
Yeah.
Okay, next item up business is, I think, 8.3 is the request for decision on a request for utility account leniency. So Foothills Pizza and Pasta had some faulty equipment installed by a letter supplied by the owner, which caused some really excessive leakage for a 3-month span. Yeah. That's where I have an issue. They knew 2 weeks in that they had an issue and it took 3 months to solve. Yes. That's really bad. So 6 months, even worse. 3 billing cycles, yeah.
If I may, is that a business insurance issue? That's a warranty issue.
So, but installer, if I installed it,
Yeah,
I
on his part.
I not cover that in my insurance. So that to me is the way that this should go. This is an installer who screwed up and or it's warranty on a new piece of equipment installed. That's where they should be going. $1,000+ for a billing cycle. So I'm in agreement with Councillor Gordon here. Is there a simple payment plan where we can forgive some of the interest accrued and or all the interest accrued, which I'm totally fine with because that is bad. And he can go after the installer. That's about what we can do.
I think that there's no interest accrued. Do they pay their bills? They have paid their bills. Yeah, so
Yeah,
there's
all
no
our
interest.
bills are on time.
Okay, so then why don't we
They paid
send a
their
letter of
bills, so
support to say, hey, your manufacturer screwed up. We agree. You have been wrong. That's about all we can do.
if I could,
Everything
through the chair.
Yeah, Heather?
This came to Black Diamond Council before, and we actually denied the request at that time. And I'd suggest that we deny the request again. I totally agree. It's a warranty issue or a installer issue, and that's who they should be going after. It's not the town's responsibility to. It's very, very unfortunate, and I feel really, really bad that it's happened to them, but this has been over the course of several months as well, so, yeah.
Yeah, 6 months. I would want to plug the unit at that point, turn off water entirely. So, yeah, no, I can't say I disagree. So put a motion on the table and let's move this baby along. Heather?
The council, deny the request for leniency on, the utility account for Foothills Pizza and Pasta.
Okay, thank you.
And they did it. Keep ordering pizza from Milk Mug. That's it. Or a couple.
Any further discussion?
I just have one question. I mean, this is a really good example of how water usage can get carried away and nobody even knows about it. Do you think in future that administration to look at doing a 30-day delay. Sorry.
If I may, 30-day billing. If I may, through the chair.
Please.
So to address your question through Mayor, Councillor Martin. Black Diamond does monthly readings, so they don't send out a bill, but they do monthly readings. As Diamond Valley, that is a process that we are going to continue because when you talk about someone getting an excessively high bill, if you can address it or recognize it after a month as opposed to 2 months.
Yeah.
So what we're going to continue to do that process, even though we're not going to send out bills. We will do readings.
Okay, in both communities. Okay.
Good, Mayor.
Yeah, as an example of it, I had an issue with mine, and I was notified like pretty much immediately.
And that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a really good process.
Yeah, I was gonna just ask, it's likely he was notified about this.
Yeah, so,
So
well, he
what-
says that he
totally
knew.
is-
He says he knew 2 weeks in that it was an issue. Yeah. But then it persisted for 6 more months. When you know you got an issue, you gotta do something about it. Especially with
Yeah.
water.
Yeah, no, so they can't be-
Be our cap.
No. All in favor? Thank you, that's carried. 8.4, council representation of the cemetery board. Boom, hit me.
That council point, Ron.
That was quick.
Yes.
Okay.
I second that motion, Mary Crane.
Yep, there you go. Now we're moving. All in favor? There's no discussion.
There's no discussion.
She's
No
in.
concerns.
She's in. I like this speed here. Okay, what do we got next, Deputy Mayor?
Information.
Or, yeah, that reports. Steph, we don't have time for Steph. All right, CAO, please, it's up to you now.
Only meetings now
I will hand it over to you.
We don't have 4 hours to go through the CAO's report. He's been busy.
So I'll go like this. Council, you have the CAO report in front of you. What is the dire question if you were to rub the lamp that you have for him to ask and answer? Do I dare? Hazel.
On page 100, I'm sorry, I'm trying to play on my phone here. Parts of looking at hiring a building manager, will be using a business case during the budget.
Parks are looking at hiring a facilities manager, construction manager, bonus aspect. Craig, who do you want to hire?
Thanks for the question, Councilor Blairton. Through the chair, we're not looking specifically to hire a building manager. What I'm proposing anyways, we haven't really had a staff meeting about any of that yet, so this is. I'm still gonna jump with the gun. It's already the stage. What we're hoping to do with the amalgamation of two communities. Former Black Diamonds addressed their building maintenance requirements differently than we did in Turner Valley, and in Turner Valley, it was parks and facilities. And the facilities part of parks was staff supervisors were hired to do building maintenance, so all our preventative maintenance, the day-to-day, toilets, doors that don't work, windows that won't close, lights that burn out, stuff like that, changing filters and bugs. And that was all handled through one person or through our supervisor or myself, and then our staff took care of those things. At that time, through that model, it kind of worked. It had challenges, but it worked. Here on this side, up until recently, all building maintenance is kind of handled for building by whoever the there's no specific PM program. Yeah, no specific PM program or responsible person. So it was kind of each facility took care of it. now that we're amalgamated, I'm proposing that we still have the parks and building maintenance division. But because of the volume of responsibility and work, with the amalgamation, all the buildings will need to be key security systems need to be integrated into the centralized surveillance. There's HVAC systems, there's condition assessments, there's asset management, contractor oversights, the whole preventative maintenance portfolio. And so it's a fairly significant role. And I'm proposing that not so much hire somebody. We do have a couple of really talented folks in the parks department that have been managing that area. I'm proposing that we create a role specific to building maintenance and break that person, and they'd still report to our supervisor of parks and building maintenance, but they would have a fairly significant role in managing that. And as time goes on, we'll be able to figure out what the time commitment is to that, so we can assess whether that's a full-time role or a 0.6 role or whatever. They'd still be able to assist in parks where necessary if they come along. So it's not hiring a brand new person or creating a new role. It's sort of breaking the role out specific instead of being sort of just mingled into the whole department.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
That's really great, Craig, because, you know, like you're already starting to look at the efficiencies that can be found within and departmentalizing it. So kudos. I'll look forward to seeing the budget report.
Another kudos, two kudos actually. One I haven't mentioned too much. Obviously, snow clearing, fantastic job. Huge kudos to everyone in your department on that. But the other one is, you know, right there, we have both outdoor rinks closed now behind the Blair Derrick and Rec Center, yet we're servicing still the Lions outdoor rink. Great job servicing that all year. Our volunteers have been cleaning that place regularly, contacting you, letting you know. The guys have been great to come over to Zamponia. We've got a huge base there. So even though we've had mild weather, we've had very little drop in it. So knowing that the other two are closed and we have such a thick base there, it's nice. I think that we probably get 3 more weeks out of that until we'll shut that down. Just a great job all around for the whole season on the Lions campground rink. So just got to follow.
Yeah, Americans trend. Yes, and I would like to address the ice thing because I know it's a popular question with the residents. They want to know why the Lions ice is still open and all the other rinks. And I'd like to take a quick opportunity to share why. The primary in the simple answer is we did have a lot of mild weather, unusually long periods of weather. And unlike the Lions rink, the boarded rinks kind of create a microclimate, and with the boards, especially with the Turner Valley rink being situated east-west, that long north board reflects a lot of that UV down onto the ice, and it's really, once you get warm winds, it really doesn't take much. It starts to swirl in there, and it's melts and tucks. Whereas the open rink sort of sustains.
Yeah, so it's really, I was over yesterday shoveling, so that's good. Ron.
What is a water horn distribution to farmers?
So water horns, so when a builder is in the final stages of testing out their water connections from the main to the systems within the house, on a temporary service, they'll stick in just a section of pipe that would be the equal distance to what our water meter space. They lock that in place from the water source test systems. That's really what it is. Simple or tests.
And how did it
the cost saving of 180 per household and 180 per house build?
Per house bill.
One last one I gotta highlight, because I forgot about this. 750 cubic meters a day saved because we found 4 leaks fixed. 750 cubic meters a day being just down the gravel, we are now saving, and all the costs associated. So that's huge. Good job. Again, Public Works, this ain't the day.
Yeah.
And if I may, those are great finds. Unfortunately, what cost me a lot of unrest at night is the other findings that we have come across. There's still other leaks out there that we're kind of concerned about proceeding with, just because the lines that we've been repairing, we're finding they're old steel or cast lines, and they're quite old. You know, what happens is they start to fail with pitting, and so we're finding entire sections that are half block or full block where we're getting sounding where we can't pinpoint one specific movements right here along the entire route.
Right.
So those are some hazards for us. It's not a simple fix. Now we're talking about pulling entire blocks up. And the other side of this is because you patch one leak, here you get all these little pinholes, you increase the pressure, and it just pushes another. So as much as I want to, relish in that success, I also fear that it's really just a matter of time.
Right. Gordon, and then.
So something that came after we were doing our water testing at Turner Valley was the need to have the shut-off valves closer connected. Is that, and at the time we talked about hopefully bringing that forward into an asset management plan. What's the progress on that, Craig?
Good question, Councilor Gordon, through the chair. There are a few areas that were identified where the spacing was not necessarily wrong or problematic, but it does create some challenges. For testing, because when you do an audiometric testing on your water systems, the sounding equipment, you connect them to the water mains, and usually there's an ideal spacing, so you get a more accurate reading. The longer that spacing is, the reading becomes less. And or you get to a point where the spacing is too far and you can't pick up any proper. So recommendation is obviously you want shorter sections, and it's also beneficial in being. So I haven't made any headway on that as of yet. There's certainly been a lot activity on our place with amalgamation and moving forward with other service issues. So we certainly could integrate into our operating budget a valve maintenance and replacement program, because on top of the spacing, we have an issue with a number of valves that fail. And so part of why we want to go with an audiometric process for leak detection versus the pressure version is we're scared to turn valves. We turn valves at this point, we turn valves when we absolutely have to. Because they're either not turning off when we need to, or they shut off and we can't reopen. So if we were to do a pressure test on our system, we'd know where our leaks were immediately, but then we'd also increase our expenses tenfold.
Thank you.
Okay, Kim, I will stop talking and let Veronica talk for the rest of the team.
So Black Diamond Council, former Black Diamond Council, had some hopes and dreams for capital projects. Will your department be able to get these reports out back to this council in time for budget? Or are we just gonna guess? Because I know where our forgiveness.
That's fun.
Thanks, through the chair, Councillor Clover. I don't mean to shatter your dreams and hopes. I would highly recommend we don't do any paving projects unless we can confirm that the infrastructure underneath that road
Oh,
is.
no, but it's not.
Oh,
All coming up.
yes.
But would your department be able to prioritize the desperate categories? in type of budget?
Short answer, once we do an audio sounding of the water lines and identify where those leaks are, potentially, yes. Off the top of my head, or more honestly, I would say that unless I know specifically the age of the infrastructure and the road, materials used, and able to do a proper assessment of those utilities, I would certainly.
No, payment includes
Forward.
the whole dig
Yes.
replacement.
I can pretty much tell you from what I've learned so far is there's a.
I'm gonna say anything that's not paved needs to be underground first.
All right. Anything else? Thanks, doing great work as well. Lots of work on your plate, Nick. I'll give you 5 minutes if you want to slam it. Cindy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's a certain time of year that those audio things are best done at for looking for leaks.
To the chair, Councillor Halliday, that is, that's a pretty good question. No, you can do it any time of the year. If you ask the techs, they're obviously going to want to do that in the summertime because it's more comfortable. But the real question or the real answer is there's a better time of day for it, and we try to do it starting at 11 o'clock at night through to 5 a.m. because that's when the traffic is at its least busy and our residents are typically in bed, so laundry isn't being done, people aren't taking showers, so the system's a lot more quiet so that the audio testing is more accurate or more predictable.
Follow up, Cindy?
Yeah, I'm just wondering because we all know, I think unanimously, that we really want to get on with the audio testing and find these leaks, and waiting for a capital budget. It wasn't that expensive to do in Turner Valley, on the Turner Valley side. I'm just wondering if anyone wants to just go ahead and get it done rather than wait.
I think we should allocate that
I
money.
think that we gotta do budget, and this is getting ahead of ourselves. This report is for information, so I think we have to go through the whole budget process and make these decisions. It's a lot of work that's gonna have to be done, and I suspect it mostly on the Black Diamond side. So Craig gotta come up with a plan for us, and that might not be included, all of it, in this budget.
And just a follow up to the chair is, it's not that Turner Valley has less work to do in this area. It's we've already done all the audio testing and smoke testing. We've done all the engineering work on our sewer and storms, so we know where our priorities lie. So that's all been addressed in our tender capitals. It's unknown here and just need to address this, so it's not. But you're right, it costs Turner Valley over 3 years, $8,000 each, so it really wasn't that expensive.
I think that's what Cindy's saying is, did you include that in this budget coming up? Because if not, she's saying, put it in and let's get moving.
It's been addressed.
Okay.
It's not necessarily, I don't know if it's in there yet. Yeah.
Okay, they're gonna put it in, Cindy, so we see that number this year.
It's not just the cost of the acoustic leak detection, however, it takes a lot of staff time to support that process, however. And the other challenge, as Craig has already alluded to, is that we already know areas where there's leaks. We just don't know the full extent of them, and that's the problem, because we could spend $10,000 fixing a leak, and 10 feet down the line, 2 days later, it's gonna blow again. That's the part we have to put our heads around and try and figure out the best solution for that.
Zach, Ron?
My question, just prioritize the worst bits, and we'll rip it up and pay.
Put money in for prioritizing, whatever you need, and so we can look at it. Okay, give me a motion. Jonathan gives me to accept for information. All in favor? We're good. That's gonna include corporate. The whole stack, yeah, okay, sure, go ahead.
Bryn, on your tax service careers, do you have to know if there are more or less properties on the tax service list compared to 2022?
And Meyer trade.
For tax service?
We'll have that.
Just good, it's just good to see it get with this.
Sorry, any question for Nick? See him speak here, you have two there. Good. Yeah, go ahead.
Just what is the arena booking system different from the campground meeting? I know you're just building a new one for the latter two, but how will it do?
Thank you for the question, Councilor Martin, through the chair. Really, it's the same program, if you will, but we've had to insert different information. So for the campground, it would revolve around specific sites. We've had to upload all of the slides of those particular sites. Any of the other amenities, if you will, that they may or may not book. They can even hoping any of them even book prior to the first time and have that. So, well, there will still be communication with somebody, you know, as far as this current schedule field those questions. Also, currently the town office receptions are doing that as well, organizing them on to me. Those that are early birds in the morning to get in. We've also had tremendous interest in longer terms, but we're really analyzing that because we want to maintain the integrity of the campground for the shorter term visitors as opposed to accommodation.
Have you been receiving requests from the workers from TC Energy that are working on the pipeline?
Yeah, I was just, thank you for bringing that up. I was just going to mention that we've been told, but not been able to confirm, that there is over 800 people that will be working on that particular project.
Right here?
Well, in the area of that particular pipeline, and currently we're investigating to find out what's going on with that. Obviously, we don't want our campground to be shut up entirely for the whole summer without the opportunity to break those sites out to visitors. So if that is in fact what the reality will be, then I think we need a strategy developed that would be encouraged to see the understanding some of their needs and where they propose that some of these communities so that some old sort of temporary campground. So we don't know yet. Let's see.
They will be coming to us for a presentation, is that correct?
They did request, but they did not follow up to book dates.
It's not to be the and our local are going to be.
I just heard about it, so I have no idea, but certainly if it's going through ledge services, I'm sure that information will be shared.
And then for you got 2 or 3 people working on it.
Go loud, Rich.
So do you have 2 to 3 people working on the pieces versus one person right now? Then once you get into camping season, you have a second.
Thank you for the question, but I'm not quite sure that I understand fully. At the moment, the part-time, so we have a half FTE that works on scheduling, and that person's developing and uploading the information to get it ready. Additionally, then I would oversee that particular project. We will also have to hire a seasonal campground host. And I would go with parks, some of the maintenance schedule.
Thanks.
Does that answer?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, excellent. All right, that's all accepted. Fortis, looks like a letter,
Yeah.
What do you know, right?
You said there.
Yeah. Send them a bottle of Screech, shall I? That is nice of them to send us a congratulations. Our first people.
As did Cold Lake.
That's good.
So. All right, yeah, let's take those two and make a motion to form a letter of response thanking them for their letter and maybe give them some. I don't know, just we'll write it. We'll just, yeah, we'll send them some swag, yeah.
That's you were getting Cold Lake if they want to.
Forest, Alberta and Cold Lake. So we'll just send them response letters, so. Don't need a motion for that. Little Days, New York Association.
It has to be in the parade.
Must be in parade. Heather?
Could we possibly have this discussion maybe a little closer to the event to see how we might want to participate? Because I know that in the past, we've either sent somebody down and they've been in a car or we haven't done anything, but I think this year kind of important with our new branding and logo and everything that maybe we should be participating in our closest neighbors event.
Yeah. Agreed. I like how we did it last year. Right, we just threw on our new t-shirts and said, Happy Valley, still loading, right? Simple,
If
but
could
we
talk-
can
Maybe we
definitely
could action it to a meeting.
bring it closer, yeah. Yeah, let's do that.
Give you a resolution to that effect if you, right?
Yeah.
That we action, the discussion regarding participation in the New York Days to the first meeting in May for discussion.
Okay, all in favor? Good, that's carried. I'll give you a quick motion to form 2 response letters, one to Forest, Alberta, one to Cold Lake, in response to their congratulation letters. And include new swag. Could be a pen.
Be waiting a while.
It's like almost there, right? Are we almost there?
I think we can do.
We're almost there. We'll include it, yeah. So just write that, all in favor?
I
Response letter is good. Sheep River Library,
Anniversary. Please mark that date, come on out. It's going to be a great day of lots of activities and some great prizes. Including some cash prizes.
okay? No motion required, just for information. Big celebration, 40th anniversary, Saturday, April 29th. At the library, starts at 1, ends at 4, lots of door prizes. Tollfield, rural Alberta. Your clubs, go ahead, Heather.
I do know that this is a resolution that's going to RMA, so.
Okay.
So I don't think there's really much there that we can do.
If we're good, we'll just accept that one for information.
And
Then.
the following one is kind of along the same idea.
Well, it's the same. Same.
Yeah, so the municipalities up and around there are not getting grant monies, not being able to they're not getting the people coming because there's other places they can go, so. They've got to be placed as a resolution at RMA.
I guess what it comes down to, the reality is this, for us out here, we go and do a casino. We get stuck into for lower end casinos. We get 60,000 a night. A Calgary based, that's not a good 3-day term. A Calgary based nonprofit works any Calgary casino and makes upwards to 200,000+ for that event. So we get, because we're just out of town, 60 grand. Only because they're in town, they get 200.
Well, is that not a resolution that we're in munis this year?
Well, that's always been, it's come up all. So this is nothing new. It's just they want to move Camrose into Edmonton. And of course, every nonprofit out there is saying, well, we're gonna get screwed money. And that's the reality of where it's at. So, yeah, it'll come up at AUMA, it'll come up at RMA as well. So I'll give you a motion to accept that one for information. All in favor? And we're gonna take a 5-minute recess, and we're gonna go on camera.